turn out to be chaotic? At what point then do we say we need to put a stop to this? These are the conversations that have been happening in the country, even as we acknowledge Article 37 of the Constitution and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga under the Azimio team being coerced or being asked or being requested to soften his stance as to conducting demonstrations across the country. Monday last week, we experienced what played out. Coming to this week, Monday, as the same happened, and of course we're expecting for today upon that declaration that they will be holding demonstrations in the country every Monday and Thursday until the government listens to their cry or to their pleas. And this would include the addressing of the high cost of living, as well as looking into the formation of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, perhaps adjusting as to what is happening right now, a process that is still ongoing, that is already ongoing, as well as opening the servers so that we understand what really happened in August the 9th, 2022. One question, just how realistic are some of these demands? The other, who is going to bend first? Is it the president to call the Right Honorable Raila Odinga on the table, and perhaps they have a dialogue on what way forward, or just exactly what plays out? Is it that the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and his team would decide that, well, then they shelve these talks of a demonstration every week and perhaps try and see whether there are other mechanisms that would have their demands addressed? Yes, that's what we'll be looking at, even as we look at what a Thursday it will be like at this very moment, when the Azimio team maintains that they are going to go to the streets to peacefully picket and protest. Kisumu Governor, that is Anyang' Nyong'o, at some point in time says that, well, maybe enough is enough. We should at least have these demonstrations conducted in Nairobi. And then again, of course, the governor of Nairobi says, no, we return back to sender. It is very, very important that, if this is to happen, let it happen across, because equally the people of Nairobi have not found it easy with the demonstrations. And then back, he rescinds his position and says that fine, they will have demonstrations for as long as they are peaceful. Just what kind of game is this, and where does it land us as a country? This is what we'll be doing all the way to 10 a.m. Also, as we engage our correspondents across the different parts of the country to see what the situation will be like on this day, where the Azimio team maintains that they will go out in the streets to demonstrate, to see to it that the government addresses some of this. We have seen, the superpowers, or better yet, the European countries, of course, issuing a statement calling upon the government as well as the Azimio team to have dialogue in relation to addressing and trying to quell this, because then it causes that form of instability, as well as the faith-based institutions as well, calling upon these leaders to address the same, but they maintain that tough stance. We'll be looking at that and so much more. Karibu sana. This is Morning Cafe. My name is Linda Alela. It's good to have you, and the broadcast begins after that moment of exercise, and we now get to hit it as to this conversation. Later on, I'll be joined by my guests that will help me decipher on this very matter. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela at TV47KA is how you get to interact with us. We sample some of the comments as we continue with the broadcast, but as of now, allow us to briefly look at what the papers detail. We have the Standard newspaper, we have the People Daily, as well as the Daily Nation. The Daily Nation: U.S. Senator meets rival camps as Western nations call for a peaceful resolution. Fallout in Ruto camp as U.S. wades into the row. But just who will blink first? The Right Honorable Raila Odinga, even after meeting them, really did not appear to, change his mind as to whether we're going to conduct demonstrations today or not. He maintains that it would be necessary for that to be conducted. And in relation to the Kenyatta farm raid, where reports of split in government over brazen invasion on the former president's property, some of them say, well, it was necessary that this plays out. Others say that investigation should be conducted because it is the right of the former president's family to have their property protected, as the state should. And protests on Azimio to go ahead with demonstrations even after the meeting with the United States Senator Chris Coons, that is and also the church leaders, as well a tough edict that Interior CS Kindiki puts violent protesters on notice, even as he vows to protect the property of every Kenyan and also the businesses. Also, it's an on and off affair, and again on, as we have said earlier on, that after calling off demos in Kisumu, the city governor Nyong'o forced to make a quick U-turn, in relation to the same. And so we'll be following up closely on the events of today. Let's just see how different they will be, or whether then it is the case that played out on Monday that would occur. Property. You can now sell land without your child's consent. There's an interesting ruling. A court in Kisii has made a landmark ruling granting parents the freedom to proceed and sell their land without consulting their children. The precedent-setting judgment is likely to influence decision on many land disputes that we have witnessed and that have pitted, pitting parents against their very own children. A story captured on page 12. Also, it will be an interesting one. You'll find the same story on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Equally, that one on demonstrations that is captured on page 4, 5, 6, and 8 of the Daily Nation finds itself on the Standard newspaper. And on the question of education, this also is a story that is on the front page of the Daily Nation, as well as the front page of the Standard newspaper. That is a reprieve for ECDE teachers as court halts pay cut order. That the Employment and Labor Relations Court has suspended the implementation of a circular by the Salaries and the Remuneration Commission that seeks to slash the pay of teachers in early childhood development and education by half. And of course, this challenge, alongside the declarations, or as well the projections that were presented to court by Omboko Milemba, as well, addressing this matter, saying that then this would be unfair for these tutors. It's also a developing story, and we'll be here to update you on the same. Cost of living, biggest worry for majority Kenyans, as has been captured right here. And we say that nearly half of Kenyans, drawn from both sides of the political divide, identify the high cost of living experienced in the country as one of the biggest problems that needs to be addressed urgently by the government of President Ruto. And of course, a new opinion poll has shown the same. This is a story that is on the back page of the Daily Nation. Away from it, to the question of education, let's see what the education bit has in store. And yes, we've also touched on that as to the ECD and history at government, mathematics and answers. Okay, this is a high schooler, of course, inside bit that speaks to the question of education and also allowing students to revise. How banks made billions as other sectors struggled. That Kenyan banks earned a record profit last year, in sharp contrast to firms in other sectors that posted profit stumps or losses. That the profits rally was given by a sharp jump in earnings from interest on loans, and as well as government securities, and a similarly rapid growth income from transition fees and foreign exchange trading. This is a story that is on page 10 of the Daily Nation, and we'll be looking at these big stories as we continue with the broadcast alongside the gentlemen. We have ample time to unpack all this, so don't you go anywhere. Let's see whether we have the People Daily here. Yes, front page of the People Daily, and one of the biggest stories, or perhaps one of the stories captured here, you have a case to answer. Joey Maribe told the story captured on page 2 of the People Daily as well. It's a story that is captured on the Standard newspaper in relation to the murder of Monica Kimani, and we'll be following up on the same to see just how best this can be addressed. These two would risk, lifetime imprisonment, and we'll be looking to see what plays out in relation to the same and how then they will argue their case. High cost of living, biggest problem for Kenyans. A poll survey says that 48% of Kenya Kwanza and 47% of Azimio supporters worry about inflation. And you can see Tom Wolf there, and therefore we'll be unpacking this report as we continue with the broadcast. Blow to youth in land ruling as well. This we have touched on. No, you cannot stop your parents from selling their land just because you had hoped to inherit it. and these children told in groundbreaking verdict that will shake families and shape the succession battles. We'll be following up closely on that as well to give you more updates on the reactions that we'll expect on the ground, especially when it comes to questions where the land is family land. Now, protests as Kenya faces a tough test, do or die affair. Raila powers ahead with plan to lead demonstrations overruling the governor Nyong'o to trying to exempt Kisumu, and as well Gachagua and Kindiki sent tough warning saying any chaos will be stopped and that envoys call for rule of law to prevail. A story captured on page 4, 5 and 6, the biggest story and the main focus of the day, and we'll be having wall-to-wall coverage of these very activities in the country beginning right now and going all the way to the evening right here on Morning Cafe. We hope that you could keep us company as well, articulate to some of these matters and how best, proposals of how best we can manage this situation so that we do not plunge the country to anarchy. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua right there says the violence that is being unleashed on the people of Kenya by Raila Odinga is meant to force us to bring him to government through the back door. Whether this would play out, whether it's the truth or not, is a question of wait and see. We want these demonstrations to be peaceful. We are invoking Article 37 of the Constitution. We also urge those planning to disrupt them to desist from the same. On the other side, the CS for Interior Kindiki says no more violent protests shall be allowed anywhere in Kenya, and with or without notices, demonstrations and protests of any type shall be prevented at all costs, and as well giving out some policies that are supposed to be followed by the police service so that this can be addressed, and also the aftermath of demonstrations, how best they can be addressed. On the other side, and the Western envoys argue that as friends and partners to Kenya, we are deeply concerned by the recent unrest and violence, as well as the destruction of places of worship and private property. It is also damaging economic activities at a time financial challenges, or at a time of financial challenges. On the other side, the civil society say that we are on the brink of the precipice, and unless the current unsavory situation is addressed urgently, we then run the risk of flying too close to the sun. We'll be following up and we will be updating you on what the situation is like in the different parts of the country. Allow us to look at what the Standard newspaper details briefly, and we get to the news stories of the day. Salary relief for 45,000 nursery school teachers. We have touched on that. Children keep off parents' lands deals as well, that we have touched on. The unfortunate story of the day is that costly loans beacon as a CBK rate up. A story captured on the Business World at page 24. Certainly one that will not rub many the right way, and we'll be giving you details on our subsequent programs as to what really this would mean, and especially for the SME world. Now, the buck stops here. The dust is yet to settle on the chaotic events of Monday, and another round of demos is on today. The 6 men below bear the greatest responsibility, that is of defining the course of events and as well maintaining the nation's stability for millions that are looking up to them. Will they set up the pace, or will they step up to the plate? A story captured on page 8. We're looking at President William Ruto, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, IG, that is the Inspector General Japheth Koome, the DPP Nordin Haji, Interior CS Kithure Kindiki, as well as the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, who's the principal of the Azimio team. And we can only wait and cross fingers that such will be addressed. But even as they try to quell these processes of demonstrations, of importance is addressing the issue of the high cost of living. Monica Mada, yes, Maribe Joey have a case to answer as well. That is a story that we have looked at. Let's take a look at what the stories of the day are this morning as we await for the guests. Now, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has urged Kenyans to proceed with their normal work routines on Thursday, assuring them of adequate security measures during the planned Azimio la Umoja demonstrations The Deputy President emphasized that the government is committed to safeguarding the property and businesses of all Kenyans, regardless of their status in society. And as reported by Mike Kagwongo, the Deputy President remained firm on the government's position, stating that they will not be intimidated or blackmailed.
On the eve of Thursday's protest to be held by the opposition, standoff between business owners and protesters could be witnessed, with the latter being assured of their security by none other but the country's second in command. The Deputy President urged business owners in Nairobi and other parts of the country to open their businesses, emphasizing that the government will protect them from thugs and looters who might take advantage of the situation.
So as you plan your demonstration tomorrow, as you plan to destroy property, know that the government will protect life and property tomorrow in Nairobi and in other towns.
He said the Kenya Kwanza government will not be intimidated and blackmailed, adding that talks with the opposition were not an option. Rigathi Gachagua disproving the narrative by the opposition that cost of living was the real issue that Azimio was protesting about, further claiming that the main strategy is to get to power through blackmail and intimidation.
He has brought destruction of property to intimidate President William Ruto and I to bring him into government. He is trying to come to government through blackmail. He is trying to blackmail us into talks. I want to confirm to the people of Kenya that the government shall not give in to blackmail. And nobody will come to power through violence.
The DP also defended the National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah and Kiharu MP Ndindi Nyoro over accusations that they were the masterminds of the Northland City invasion, owned by the family of former President Uhuru Kenyatta. Gachagua has also claimed that Azimio leaders are being used to turn Mount Kenya leaders against each other, insisting that the previous regime ruined the careers of many leaders from the vote-rich region.
When Raila Odinga was in government through the handshake arrangement with Uhuru Kenyatta, unga was 230 shillings. He did not demonstrate, he did not raise an issue. Unga has now come down to 175 and 180. That is not the real issue. The violence that is being unleashed against the people of Kenya by Raila Odinga is trying to force us to enter into a handshake and bring him to government through the back door.
Gachagua was speaking in Kangosho Secondary School in Mathera constituency during a visit to assess the school's development needs and appreciate teachers, students and parents for good performance academically.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Meanwhile, the ruling party UDA Secretary General Cleophas Malala urged Kenyans to ignore the planned Azimio protest and concentrate with their daily chores. Malala maintains that the Kenya Kwanza administration is focused on delivering its plan and will not be distracted by those he called self-seekers.
We are urging Kenyans to ignore, and especially the youth who are being misused by our political rivals, to ignore the maandamano calls and go to work. You can only lower the cost of living by working for this nation.
Mike Kagwongo, TV 47, Nairobi.
Now, embassies and high commissioners in Kenya have raised concerns over the recent unrest and violence, as well as destruction of places of worship and private property. In a joint statement, the ambassadors urged the Inspector General of Police, Japhet Koome, to launch investigation into recent events. And Rinkelemi reports.
Chaos that continue to be witnessed in the country following the weekly protests organized by the opposition party Azimio One Kenya Alliance has now attracted the attention of embassies and high commissioners in Kenya. The foreign diplomats are now raising concerns over the violence and destruction of property. In a joint statement from Australia, Canada, Denmark, Netherlands, Sweden, Norway, United Kingdom and United States, the ambassadors and high commissioners said the current situation in the country is damaging economic activity at a time of significant financial challenges. According to the commissioners, Kenya has rightfully earned a reputation as an anchor of stability, security and democracy in Africa and beyond. They called upon leaders and all Kenyans to maintain peace, show restraint and work towards a swift resolution for the common good of Kenya, further urging the Inspector General of Police Japheth Koome to move with speed to investigate recent events of violence and destruction of private property. The statement came just hours before Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua hosted a delegation from America led by Delaware Senator Christopher Andrew Coons. Sources intimate that part of the meeting centered around the ongoing protests. Coons was also said to
Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki is on Friday expected to issue new policy directives on how police will deal with violence during demonstrations and what could mark a new shift in the ongoing mass action by the opposition. The directive comes in the wake of violence that rocked Nairobi and Kisumu Monday, leaving 2 people dead and scores of police and civilians injured. And as Apollo Kamau reports, Monday's violent protest caused a stir between Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja and his Kisumu counterpart, Anyang' Nyong'o.
Alarmed by Monday's Azimio's violent protests here in Nairobi and Kisumu that left 2 people dead and scores of police officers, civilians and journalists injured amid violent invasion and destruction of property, the government has moved in to restore sanity in the ongoing Azimio's mass action call, with Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki expected to issue new directives to the police on how to respond to violence during the demos. The new directives, expected to take effect on Friday this week, after Thursday's mass action, will guide on how Nairobi, Kisumu and other violent hotspots will get 24-hour security surveillance, how public safety will be guaranteed during the demos, outline measures on those caught in acts of criminality like destruction of property during demos, provision of security to all persons whose property has been violated or is targeted for destruction, and enhancement of security for Kenyans at large and foreign nationals. According to the Interior Ministry, 2 people lost their lives on Monday, 51 police officers and 85 civilians injured. The chaos also saw a police vehicle burnt in Kawangware here in Nairobi, with a shocking highlight of the day after goons invaded retired President Uhuru Kenyatta's family land on the outskirts of the capital Nairobi. A church and a mosque were also burnt in Kibra, raising jitters in Kisumu and Nairobi, where Governors Johnson Sakaja and his Kisumu counterpart Professor Anyang' Nyong'o engaged in a social media tiff after Nyong'o suspended the demos in Kisumu, saying the protesters should instead join their counterparts in Nairobi, remarks that did not go down well with Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja, terming Nyong'o's proposal as unacceptable. Governor Nyong'o later lifted the ban.
We are encouraged by the resolve of our people to continue the demonstrations tomorrow. We have therefore been urged by our people to continue with peaceful demonstrations tomorrow, and we shall do so.
The Interior Ministry and the National Police Service will be on the lookout for Thursday's mass action, with Kindiki warning no more violent protests shall be allowed in Kenya. Apol Kamau, TV47.
Well, and that very story as well will be forming the basis of our conversation. We follow up shortly to update you on what is there. It's exactly 55 minutes past the top of the hour. We still have more stories for you, but for now, allow us to take a quick short breather. Remember, we'll be having our correspondents across the different parts of the country to keep you posted on the same as well. Shortly, we introduce the gentleman that will join us for this very conversation. So a quick short breather, and we're back.
Yeah, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics.
Sabak,
It is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, you know, like this is a lie. Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us every morning.
Kwa muonekano wao hauwezi ukajua waliopitia, kwa sura zao zinapong'aa hauwezi ukafahamu changamoto zao. Nyuma yao ipo stori la historia. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi tunakupa nafasi kuweza kuwafahamu kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mutu.
Your health matters, and Body Garage is here to guide you on it.
Someone's, after using the medication, the virus number of the HIV in someone's body will start to go.
My medication, wherever I go, I must make sure I'm committed to my medication. Yes, and I should watch what I'm eating. I should not just eat from everywhere or not just eat anything.
We talk mental, physical, and spiritual health. Join us every Thursday at 8 p.m. Lover of farming? Well, Kilimo Diaries is your home for different farming ventures, crops, animals, and so much more. Every Sunday. With a new year comes endless possibilities, and as we continue to tell the stories of those abled differently, do make sure to join us on Beyond the Limit every Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
It's a new year, and with a new year, it means new business ideas, new trends in the market, and new tips to make your current business even better.
Giving an option for a customer to have unsecured financing enables them to get the product today without putting any collateral down.
And we here on The Grind, we will be at the forefront to keep you in the loop every Monday at 8:30 p.m.
Yeah, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics.
Sabak.
It is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, you know, like this is a lie. Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us. Welcome back to Morning Cafe. Now, one person has been shot dead by bandits at Yarta in Baringo County. The attacks took place 5 kilometers from the burial site of 2 people who were also killed by bandits 1 week ago. And Kadago Chelimo was attacked by the bandits who stole more than 50 cows. His body is still at the scene where he was attacked, as residents claim the bandits are waiting to attack anyone who dares to go to take that body. Meanwhile, at Chepkwel village in Baringo North, another family is mourning the loss of their loved one who was shot and killed during the ongoing police operation in counties that have been affected by banditry attacks.
Nataka nialike huyu mama ya human rights. Kazi yake ni kulia tu kusema haki ya binadamu. Kwani hii ni manyani? Kwani wenye wanalala hapa ni nyani? Kama yeye ni mtetezi wa human rights, mbona hatujaona katika Baringo akitetea wale watu ambao wameoa katika Baringo North na Baringo South na Turkana?
Watu wetu wamechoka, tumechoka kuzika watu.
Kwa area hii ya Baringo North na Baringo South, si tumepitishiwa NPR 100 sasa kama Baringo North, tumepitishiwa NPR 100 kama Baringo South, lakini tunaambiwa kila kitu inaishia Kome. Mimi nauliza mheshimiwa MP, hii mtu anaitwa Kome ni mtu ama ni mtu nini? Because amekuwa shida kwetu. Mimi naomba parliament waimpeach, si mtu aimpeachiwe, kwa sababu tukiambia resign hawezi kutoka, mwende muimpeach yeye.
Your Excellency Dr. William Ruto, hii mambo ya kila siku don't dare me, na mtu anakudea tu kila siku. Pastor amehubiri hapa, ametutolea verses 2 kwa Bible. Ulipatiwa kisu ya kulima, ya kukatakata. Anza na Koome kwanza. Kata huyu Koome juzi tumepitisha juzi. Amekuwa kiburi saizi.
Now, Mount Kenya University has hosted the 8th International Interdisciplinary and Inter-Universities Consortium at the Mwai Kibaki Convention Center in Thika, where the conference is expected to continue for the next 3 days. And as our reporter, Norbert Oduor, reports, the conference brought together delegates from Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and Poland to critical issues such as participatory leadership, innovation, and knowledge transfer for sustainable economics across the world.
The Mount Kenya University today welcomed delegates across the world to the 8th International Interdisciplinary and Inter-Universities Research Conference 2023. Among the universities present were the host Mount Kenya University, University of Eldoret, Kiambogo University from Uganda, University of Makeni from Sierra Leone, Chukwemeka Ondegwemu Ojukwu from Nigeria, and the Vincent Paul University from Poland.
We are happy to host you at Mount Kenya University. Let me do appreciation to the consortium member universities.
Mount Kenya University Pro-Chancellor Dr. Vincent Gaitho lauded the conference organizing committee for the topical theme, participatory leadership, innovation and knowledge transfer for sustainable economies, terming participatory as a very critical element in successful management of institutions and organizations.
The importance of participatory leadership cannot be emphasized. It brings about citizen empowerment. It brings about generation of new ideas, diverse and innovative ideas and action. It enhances citizen government relationship. It legitimizes government programs.
Also present was Mount Kenya University co-founder Dr. Jane Nyutu, who conveyed warm greetings from the Mount Kenya University co-founder Professor Simon Gisharu, further stating that the deliberations of the conference would lead to future engagements with the governments, institutions of learning and other stakeholders in support and promotion of the sustainable development.
This allows university to partner with many universities, with the industry and with practitioners in all areas that are positive impacts to human life, namely medicine, animal health and production, education, social and physical sciences, etc. Thus, in a collaborative effort, the communities across the world will be very well benefit from these joint activities of our deliberations during this consortium. In this regard, may all the deliberations of this conference lead to a future engagements with the governments, institutions of learning, and other stakeholders in support and promotion of the Sustainable Development Goals 2030, and more specifically in support of reduced inequalities with our societies.
However, the 3-day consortium that began today have been termed as a useful tool that will assist universities in attaining their mission and varied visions.
As you are aware, universities have a triple mandate of teaching, research, and community engagement. The interdisciplinary and inter-university consortium, as here represented by its member, is a useful strategy for assisting universities in attaining their missions and varied visions. However, as we move into the second decade of our existence as a consortium, maybe more interaction through staff and students' exchange could be explored.
The conference is always being held annually and the themes change every year, but this year it was being held due to the need to provide solutions to challenges facing world economies. Norbert Oduor, TV 47.
Now, political parties in the country will have to readjust their budgets after the funding got slashed by about 592 million. And according to the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, here's more.
Speaking in Machakos after political party stakeholders meeting, Ruto confirmed the slash of 592 million in the new budget adjustment affecting government offices in the country. According to Ruto, political parties' initial funding budget in this financial year was 1.4 billion and political parties has already received 726 million out of the total 884,354 million new budget. Ruto says the second half of the financial year political parties will receive only 140 million.
So we have received a budget cut in the last supplementary of 590,646. We are not only political parties have been affected, even the Office of Registrar has been affected by the budget cut. The political parties liaison committee also have been affected by the budget cut. Other government departments have also been affected by the budget cut. So we are not the only one.
Out of the 90 registered political parties in the country, only 48 qualify for funding, with that 9 having applied for the funds, 2 parties still waiting to receive the funds, 4 to apply afresh, while 3 parties have not bothered to apply at all.
That if a party significant changes their members, for example, you have changed more than half of your party members and appointed others on interim capacity, we do not expect that those members will remain in interim capacities for long, forever. We expect that the party shall call a meeting to ratify the decisions, because we are not going to expect that the interim officials remain interim for the longest time without a limit.
Political parties' representative, however, vote to challenge the move to slash the party's funding budget, stating that the initial political parties' funding budget by the national government is supposed to be 6.1 billion, and now the political parties are worried on the new trend where political funds have always been slashed.
Party's fund has been slashed by 592 million. This message has just been relayed to us by the registrar a few minutes ago. And we were hoping that this is the government, as promised in their manifesto, that is going to support political parties. And what we are seeing is actually the opposite. So as parties, we are opposed to any of those cuts touching on PPF, because the statutory requirement of PPF is supposed to be 0.3% of the national revenue. And we were hoping, as President Ruto had promised, that he's going to achieve this requirement. So as parties, we are collectively opposed to those budget cuts, and we are soon demanding the written communication from Treasury, and we will take action.
As the country continued to witness political unrest, Nderitu urged political parties to caution their members not to engage in law-breaking activities and have political tolerance.
I want to say, and I want to call again for political tolerance in this country, especially for different opinions, and also protection of basic human rights. So we call for political tolerance and responsible speech on part of all political leaders.
So as political parties collectively, we all agree that we are going to stand by the law and support all the calls to enhance peace in this country and make sure that we have civility.
Nicholas Mbai, TV47, Machakos County.
The Azimio Brigade insists that their planned mass action protests will proceed on today, despite intervention from, among others, the clergy. Odinga, who spoke after a meeting with Catholic bishops and a section of Nubian leaders from Kibra, said he won the election, demanding that the Independent Electoral and Boundary Commission servers used in the August poll must be opened.
Determined to lead the third series of the anti-Kenya Kwanza government, Azimio leader Raila Odinga is now a man who has opted to take the bull by its horns, telling President William Ruto to face him direct on the issues Azimio has been protesting. Odinga, while meeting a section of the Kenya Catholic bishops and Nubian community leaders, insisted that thus the protests are on as planned.
Sisi ni wa Kenya na tunaweza kusuluhisha shida zetu kama wa Kenya. Kwa hivyo hakuna haja ya Bwana Ruto kwenda kule Ujerumani kuongea juu ya mambo ya Raila sio nini hapa. Kwa tuongee hapa Kenya. Fungua server. Tuone kitu gani iko ndani ya server.
Odinga has maintained the Azimio-led protest will not be called off until the government of the day heeds to its demands. Among the issues Odinga and team are highlighting is the renewal of the Electoral Poll Agency, IEBC's servers, selection panel tasked to reconstitute IEBC, and the cost of living, matters that President William Ruto earlier dismissed.
Kwa hivyo sisi tunaongea kwa niaba ya Wakenya wengi zaidi kuliko wao. Kwa sababu tunasema hakuna mtu anaweza kututisha.
On the flip side, the veteran opposition leaders called pockets of protesters who will heed to the Azimio call to come out to the streets and picket to restrain themselves from any unlawful activities.
We want these demonstrations to be peaceful. As we have said, we are invoking provisions of Article 37 of our Constitution. These demonstrations must be peaceful.
Elsewhere, Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna was Wednesday released on 50,000 shillings cash bail and is set to appear in court next week of alleged unlawful assembly during the March 20th maandamano. Sifuna had earlier appeared at the Directorate of Criminal Investigations DCI headquarters after being summoned. The legislator termed the charges as an attempt to intimidate Azimio leaders against participating in the planned demonstrations.
What we want to call on the Inspector General of Police is to do what is required of him under the law and provide security to the protesters. Other than that, I want to thank Kenyans, I want to thank the people of Nairobi for exercising patience. This is a small matter. You have seen that I have not been accompanied here by crowds, the way you would expect politicians to do. Because this is a very, very small and straightforward matter.
Amid the push and pull between the government and the opposition, a section of leaders drawn from the Azimio coalition have maintained the demonstrations slated for Mondays and Thursdays will continue. Mwege William for TV47, Nairobi.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki has broken his silence over the Monday attacks on former President Uhuru Kenyatta's farm in Northlands in Ruto, and that on Raila Odinga-owned Spectre Farm, that is the gas company. According to Kindiki, officers could not respond quickly as they were recalled to quell the protest on the city. And as Elizabeth Atieno now reports, a section of Kikuyu elders have criticized the attack, further blaming some leaders.
The Monday attack and invasion of the Northlands farm linked to the Kenyatta family and the East Africa Spectre Limited gas plant associated with Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga has continued to elicit mixed reactions from Kenyans. And today, the Ministry of Interior, led by Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki, also weighed in on the matter through a statement where they confirmed the invasion, which involved about 2,000 criminals who stole livestock, set fires and attempted to construct makeshift camps in what is termed as an attempt to occupy the land located in Ruiru. In the statement, Professor Kindiki also states that, and I quote, "A smaller gang attempted to storm a business in the industrial area of Nairobi, which is associated with the former Prime Minister of Kenya, who is the principal leader of the current protests. While the quick action of the police and private security guards repulsed the industrial area criminals, the action to protect the Ruiru property was not as quick, owing to operational constraints caused by the protests that were taking place." Professor Kindiki's remarks on attacks at Northlands Inspector Company come just a day after Odinga visited the site, where he condemned the National Police Service of failing to timely respond to the distressing situation on Monday midday, alleging that their police officers acted 24 hours after the incident.
It is not an accident that the police was not here. The information we have is that this land gave a portion of his land to the police officers to construct a police post. Unfortunately, there was no police officer on site.
The attack meted on the former president farm has also taken a tribal turn after a section of Kikuyu Council of Elders executive members joined other Kenyans in condemning the destruction and robbery that took place at the farm, further castigating a section of political leaders from the region for orchestrating the heinous act.
It was a vivid way of bringing to fruition the Hustlers versus Dynasties campaign calls of last year. This council expresses its shame and the shame of the entire Kikuyu community that the individuals responsible for the above horror were Kikuyu leaders comprising Ichong'wa, Kuria, Ndindi, and Gachagua, among others.
Anasimamia kumaliza mali ya watu wetu. Hata yeye hata hiyo mali atapata mali ataweka wapi? Na yeye hawezi kwenda Uganda, hawezi kwenda Tanzania. Mali yake itakuwa hapa, hata yeye tutakuwa hapa. Sasa tungetaka hata yeye ajitokeze aseme ni kitu gani ilifanyika wakati rais ameenda safari, yeye amebaki hapa siku 4 na tukimpatia kazi ya miaka 5 je?
The elders have called upon those who made away with the stolen livestock to go for cleansing, warning that they risk being cursed. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47, Nairobi.
Away from politics to this unfortunate story, more than 30 students from St. Elizabeth Mukumu Girls High School remain hospitalized in different hospitals in Kakamega County after complaining of stomachache, diarrhea and vomiting. The 30 are among the 124 who were allegedly rushed to hospital. And of course, the medical superintendent at the Kakamega Referral Hospital said they have collected and sent samples to Cambridge Laboratory in Kisumu for further investigation to determine the cause of the problem. Violet Auma with more.
Panic and fear over cholera outbreak has engulfed students and parents of St. Elizabeth Mukumu Girls High School in Kakamega County after more than 100 students were rushed to hospital to receive treatment Wednesday evening.
We sent 111 girls to the county hospital to be diagnosed because some of them were complaining of feeling they had headache, others were feverish, others were complaining of body ache, joint pains, and a few were talking about the stomach ache.
It is alleged that the students who were taken to Kakamega Referral Hospital, Mukumu Mission Hospital, and Oasis Hospital complained of stomach upset, diarrhea, and vomiting.
So out of 111, only 15 were admitted, and out of the 15, only 2 had malaria.
We have already communicated on the parents' wall that they should not be worried. If we have a challenge with their daughter, we'll let them know.
Mercy Omondi is a medical doctor in charge of Mukumu Hospital, where 15 students are admitted.
We are generally checking for sepsis or infection, as well as typhoid, amoeba, And those are the tests that we are currently carrying out.
The school principal, Frida Ndolo, said that some of the students were treated and discharged back at school, while some parents of affected students arrived to pick them for further medication back at home.
I know that those children who are sick, a good number came from home sick. We are trying to manage the situation.
Education and public health officials visited the school and commenced investigation in the matter.
I've already handed this to the health officers. I'm waiting to get the results of the stool and if there's any other. But last time when a sample was taken, it was noted that the water had some flora.
All the affected students, we are calling in their parents to come and pick them and take them home for treatment.
The medical superintendent at Kakamega Referral Hospital, Boniface Nyumbile, has said that samples from the students have been taken and sent to Kemri for further investigations in a bid to determine the cause. Violet Auma, TV47, Kakamega.
Discussion is on already, and some of these things that we say off the cuff, I hope we would have the chance to speak them on air, because then we come to learn of very many things, and also another twist that comes on board as to the conversations of the demonstrations that are being carried in the country and the, so to speak, irreducible minimums by the Azimio team. That one, we need the servers open so that we are able to prove to the people of Kenya that perhaps the sitting president did not win the elections, and that Right Honorable Raila Odinga did. They proceed to say that, well, the high cost of living must be addressed. And speaking of the high cost of living, we've seen that, information that is out, the opinion poll, that Kenyans from across all divide, that is the political divide, continue to reel, because of the tough times. And that is on the question of the high cost of living. As well, they say they want to have the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, formed using other mechanisms, contrary to what process is ongoing as it is right now. Yesterday, we spoke about the Select Committee, saying that they are on course and that this is a legal process and that it is happening according to what it is that the law dictates. Well, true, that is the case. But then the Azimio side maintains that this is for the sake of the people and posterity, and therefore, if adjustments might need to be made, contrary to what the law dictates, then it would be a plus, so that we end up getting the right individuals. The Right Honorable Raila Odinga yesterday arguing that, well, there would be no point for him to vie in 2027 if at all we're going to go with the same that is here in terms of the commissioners that will be picked with the Select Committee that is, was gazetted and is on course right now. He says that those ones will be compromised from the word go. Is it the case or not? We speak to these matters and so much more. And being a Thursday, a little bit chilly or cold, gentlemen, you might need to confirm that, because I've not been out since around 4 a.m. in the morning. I've been right here, so I'd love to know whether it's a little bit chilly, but it sounds like it is chilly on the other side. But all the same, here we are. And we ask ourselves, are we going to witness maandamano as was on Monday? Or maybe there's going to be some soft aspect to this, that is going to be a peaceful process, contrary to the animosity that we witnessed Monday. Welcome on board. We welcome you to be part and parcel of the conversation. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47KA, and we'll be sampling some of your comments as we continue with the broadcast. The Member of Parliament, Embakasi North, is here with us, Honorable Jimmy Gakuya, as well as the party leader of Justice and Freedom Party, that is Dr. Justice Juma, is here with us. This gentleman will help me decipher in these political matters. They've been here long enough. Third-time Member of Parliament, as well as, those ones that were councillors back then. And I mean, you have worked with the likes of Right Honorable Raila Odinga, and perhaps would understand his style of politics to a point of setting up your own party that is going strong. I believe these gentlemen are able to speak to what is happening right now. Before I ask us where the rain started beating us and whether then we are addressing the right matters that are at hand. Mheshimiwa, maandamano iko leo?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Allow me to salute the viewers wherever they were watching us from, and especially my great people of Embakasi North. And coming to your question, I still hope that maandamano is still there, because by yesterday, I thought the climax of yesterday, after engagement of the U.S. Senator, there could be change. But still, the statement is like the demonstration are still there. So, as Honorable Raila Odinga agitated, I still hope that actually his followers will still follow his directives, and probably the Madamano will be still there. I did witness Honorable Nyang' Nyong'o, the governor of Kisumu, agitating that actually Mandamano are not going to be there in Kisumu, but later he
rescinds his position, yes.
He changed his position and still said that the Mandamano could be there. That is probably, this is maybe probably after assessing the laws, because the counties are also suffering. Remember that actually domestically they do collect the revenues within their jurisdictions, but when these Mandamano are there, the business are totally killed, and therefore corrections must be slowed down. And therefore that could be the reason why Governor Nyang' Nyong'o was finding it right now to look on how it could be slowed down, on how it could be stopped. In Nairobi, we have recent Governor Sakaja also stating very clear that the Mandamano are not going to be there. But I think that in fact, if the government is serious enough, we must not witness these demonstrations when they have made a statement that they won't be. When the directive comes from the government, stating clearly that the demonstrations are illegal, then it tells you that whoever then moves to demonstrations is illegally doing that. That is what we heard from the government. But unfortunately, in the last 2 Mondays that we have witnessed, they have alluded to that. But lastly, we have been seeing the leader of Azimio in Mandamano at the end of the day, no matter whether it is Kibra, no matter whether it is Mabale, that is still a Mandamano, because once those Mandamano are there, whether they are in those informal settlements, or whether they are in the capital city, remember that we have hustlers down there who does those small businesses, who also need to be protected. It's not only that we need to protect the capital city, we also need to protect the business of those other small society businessmen down there.
And I'd love to understand why then the government has been keen, first of all, protecting the CBD. But before we get to that, allow us to read what these letters were from these 2 governors. The first one, in the past 2 weeks, residents of Kisumu County have been joining other Kenyans' peaceful demonstration against the Kenya Kwanza government over the high cost of living and electoral fraud. We have been demanding for the opening of the 2022 presidential election service to determine who actually won this seat. Our people have been protesting the high cost of living and characterized by sharp rise in the cost of food and other basic commodities. Our people have also been protesting the undemocratic plans by the Kenya Kwanza government to that is regime, to handpick a partisan independent electoral and boundaries commission to manage the 2027 general election, contrary to what is provided in the constitution. And of course, the people of Kisumu have spoken loudly and clearly on these very serious matters and have delivered their petitions to the government. We have delivered the message and expressed our resolve to stand with the Azimio la Umoja leader, Raila Amolo Odinga, in quest for justice. However, after a detailed consultation with the Azimio national leadership and the county executive committee, the cabinet, I wish to make the following announcements. One, that all public demonstrations within Kisumu County have from today been suspended indefinitely so that we can join the demonstration in Nairobi. That the people of Kisumu remain committed to the aspirations of Azimio la Umoja and its campaign for a better Kenya. And that finally, I would like to appeal to the people of Kisumu to work in tandem with law enforcement officers to maintain peace and security in our county. And then Sakaja goes ahead to say, Nairobi County is the home of Kenya's commercial and administrative capital, Nairobi City, a global diplomatic hub. My administration is working round the clock to enable the city-county serve not just Nairobi, but the people of Kenya in realizing their aspirations, which is why we are obliged to protect lives and livelihoods. The governor of Kisumu's idea that he can export his demonstrations to Nairobi and make our county, the capital of demonstrations and associated mayhem, is prosperous and totally unacceptable. Yeah, prosperous, yes, it can be a tongue twister. And Nairobi County has already hosted 2 of these demonstrations. We've borne the cost of the disruption so far. Nairobians have patiently put up with the disruption, and their taxes have paid for the aftermath. The last bit is that in the spirit of devolution, I would advise the governor of Kisumu, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, to keep the demonstrations in his county. It has been decided that further protests and demonstrations shall similarly no longer take place in part of the city. And I come to you, Justice Juma.
Right.
Legally, we all know that the Constitution allows for this, Article 37, and of course backed with a couple of other clauses in relation to, protests and peaceful demonstrations.
Very true.
But just what capability do these governors or the leaders of the counties have to perhaps call off processes of demonstrations if the president himself has not?
Well, every county have their own independent approach to how to go about these things. But of course, I think also we may need not to address legality with a legality, or 2 wrongs don't make a right. To be, make it simple, because one, and I think this is what I would like also Mheshimiwa to understand, that the sovereignty that has been given to any government institutions, sovereignty absolutely belongs to the citizen. Sovereign authority belongs to the citizen. Article 1, subsection 2 of our Constitution, to begin with. They can exercise it directly or indirectly if they choose. And there is no moment the delegated authority can supersede the primary owner of the authority.
At what time?
And
at what time can they come in now? Exercise directly?
Yes.
That's now the basic foundation of our Constitution. Sovereign authority belongs to
the people,
the citizen.
and therefore in the interest of the people.
And the people can exercise it directly or indirectly by delegated institution, democratically elected. And these institutions are not functioning in isolation. These institutions have parameters that are governing them. Even if one leader of an institution may turn rogue, they have mechanism. Even if it is president, Mheshimiwa, and even if he's an MP, there are recall clauses. Just that sometimes people lack the capacity to press such buttons and invoke them. So that's the basic foundation of how a citizen can give or hand over their sovereignty. And whoever is in charge of these institutions actually need to be cognizant that they are primary owners of this. And if they choose to take it back, there are mechanisms that provides for how to take it back. Like now, if people are dissatisfied, and I think even in these institutions, should anyone not be satisfied with how your boss is running the organization, I think you should have a right. Right from the home, in your family. If you have issues, you address, isn't it?
Yeah.
Seriously, here we're sitting talking about mandamano because people can't even just talk among themselves.
For interjection, that's the Constitution envisage at what point the public take back their power.
Well, you see,
from delegated.
There is no moment that they let go of their power. It's always their powers, and whoever is given to them is serving them on a daily basis. Each hour, there's no moment anyone can use your power against you and render you powerless, according to the Constitution. So each time anyone thinks
at what point can you then know which part of the mass is majority? Because
it's not about
the delegated part of it.
It's not about
has their followers.
It's not about the majority.
The other side of mass has their followers.
Yes.
How do we know who carries the biggest mass?
I listen to you very keenly. And when
I'm just interjecting.
Of course, yes.
And perhaps to top up to what he says, because we've also seen, perhaps a crop of Kenyans, equally saying that we really do not encourage this for obvious reasons. Some of them have, posed as the business community, and those are Kenyans, and I'd want to believe that it is within their rights. Even at the legal aspects, perhaps they could proceed to court and say, now enough is enough on all this.
Which is a usual expected reaction to situations when people encounter circumstances that are difficult. And the majority would always like to take the path of least resistance, which is obvious. But when you have cancer in your body, I think bandaging it will not even heal. You'll just kill yourself. What are the root causes to why we are where we are? People behave like things happening accidentally. Like we were not in this country. Now this is a time when religious community now need to run. We need a dialogue. We need to talk. Yet somebody with foresight could see. And
likely to.
When I was campaigning, actually, Mheshimiwa, I'm a party leader. So I also have elected members who are also representing us on various portfolios in this part of this country. And I was a presidential aspirant. I went through this election that is contentious to date. And there are things we foresaw. I classified these brothers of mine. At some point, somebody thought I was very impolite when I called them a fox and a wolf, forcing us to choose who should eat us. And I based that based on the manifestos emanating from both quarters. And also the process of how this election was managed. Because at what point shall we have an election process where Mheshimiwa atashinda na mwenye amemshinda pia haende nyumbani aseme yenyewe I was defeated fairly and concede honestly. Now, me as a presidential candidate, I've even demonstrated that the topmost organ like EACC decided to fabricate and imagine brand me with an ID that is not even mine. When I had even given that same EACC my ID, and they chose to broadcast a different ID which was not mine for purposes of doing what? Eliminating me from election.
And Daktari, we're going to come to the electoral process.
No, just allow me to prosecute the point. Now, the ORPP, who is the custodian of registrar of voters, at some point we woke up in my party and we found that I was no longer even in my party, I was in another party. I'm just addressing the root causes of the issues we are facing and the election process. If election process is not fair, this election process, this presidential election that proceeded with impunity, High Court had ruled, remember the Ruben Kigame case?
Yes.
That the nomination process was irregular and unconstitutional. No one listened. Everybody just want to keep on acting with impunity. And let me tell you, treachery begets treachery. If you think you are too bigger than the others and you can just manipulate, you can gerrymander, and when even the four commissioners were raising issues, it's not that they were right, but did we listen to them? We were quick to crucify them, fix them, and hound them out of the office. People raised significant issues regarding this election process. Now we are here, and the rubber has hit the road. Someone will say the chicken has come home to roost. And still we are irreversibly going down the pit without recognizing that the direction we've taken is wrong. Any conscious leader in this country who have foresight would know that we are in the wrong trajectory.
Hold it right there. And we will come to that and perhaps address this question of what the Azimio team would speak to, especially in the formation of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. But even before we take that quick speed, Mheshimiwa, I come back to you. Just how much capability do these governors have to say that, you know what, we're not going to hold demonstrations in Nairobi City and perhaps in Kisumu County, we now want to shift to this other type. Maybe politely, Governor Anyang' Nyong'o trying to, shift politely, not appearing as though he says that, well, we declare that as the county government, we will not allow for this to happen, because maybe he understands very well that there's not much leeway, within the law that would allow them that latitude. But then again, later on, rescinding his position. We have not seen Governor Sakaja, taking an about turn on this. What are the possibilities then that he is able to protect Nairobi from this?
Initially, Rida, the pronunciation of Governor Sakaja that he's not going to allow this demonstration in the city, it can only win that particular statement by way of persuasion. But otherwise, blankly, as the statement stands, it cannot help a lot, because he has no security good enough to deny the city of any demonstration. Otherwise, he must depend on what we call national security agencies to take the control. But in case Sakaja could be having that what we call metropolitan police in the city, probably I could say he has a troop that can be able to say no and his statement becomes a little. In terms of persuasion, he has good relationship with the leader of Asmio, who is Right Honorable Odinga. He can pick a call, or he can just walk to his home, and he can persuade him not to move on with this demonstration, because one, they are totally injuring the economy and especially the revenues of these two counties. And that's another route to use. But despite those two routes, there is no any other route that he can use, because mechanically there is no law he can use to invoke. Because the law is very clear that demonstrations, I remember Sonko went to court seeking for some intervention, but court still
did not accord that. Yes,
did not give him that particular window. So in that particular case, I would state that both of them are good friends of Right Honorable Odinga, and they can use their mechanism, political mechanism. They can persuade him to call off these demonstrations. But the Branca statement cannot help anything. But it is important that, in fact, he can also persuade to the protesters themselves, as the governor. In case some of them could be able to heed his voice, good enough. But at the end of the day, the statement cannot seal completely the intended demonstrations.
Yes. All right, so here we are.
It's only the court that can rescind that right.
Yes.
And if the court has not made any pronouncement, even the Inspector General, even the Interior, if they do not go through the judicial process to rescind this right, then definitely is a lost cause. And that's, I think the source of impunity that will cause aberration for those who are trying to express themselves. If anything, they would have worked in tandem and provided these individuals with the proper needed security.
Yeah.
But if it goes combative the way it is going, actually it may even end up now looking like the government is the aggressor.
Okay. Right. Speaking of which, we have seen the latest that the CS for Interior has brought to the fore in relation to some of the adjustments that they would want to make, and the guidelines as well as policies he supposes, or his office would suppose, the police service would follow, so that moving forward we are able to address and quell such animosity that we witness during demonstrations. I hope that my director and producer would work on getting us that story that speaks to some of the proposals that have been given by the Interior CS that will be followed to tame the animosity or the anarchy that comes to the fore during these processes of demonstration. Mheshimiwa, let me come back to you before we loop in Justice Juma, and it's in relation to his question. Where did it begin, and what is this that we're trying to treat, and how are we treating it, and what are the chances that once we claim we have treated this, then it is not going to recur? Because perhaps, as he says, we could be focusing so much so on treating the symptoms as opposed to the root cause of the problem. And we must admit that we have a conglomeration of problems that we really do not know where to begin in terms of addressing them as a nation.
First and foremost, let us ask ourselves, where are we coming from, and where are we? First, let us agree that, in fact, this country was yearning to have a new constitution for a long time, and that process had been curtailed for long. And it only happened during when there was a national accord, when Kibaki and Raila were on the same package. And what I can say is that, in fact, amongst other things that were put in the constitution, actually, there were areas that actually were either overtaken by event or were never taken as serious issues. Let us also ask ourselves, today, Raila is looking for amendment of the constitution to insert the office of Prime Minister and 2 deputies. An office that was the holder during the process of the new constitution. A position that he would be able to negotiate during the Naivasha retreat of the last of the final bill of the current constitution. But because of his own, I would say it was his own thought, because there is nothing Raila could wish to insert the constitution then which he could fail because he was in combination in numbers with Moi Kibaki. And the only opposer then was William Ruto. And Ruto had lesser numbers, which could not be able to outbeat the numbers with Raila and Kibaki. And the office of the Prime Minister, Raila, by his own making, decided to just abolish it. Then who can you blame today because of such an office? And the oversight where that office was not captured in the current constitution. Number two, issues to do with, related to issues to do with elections were well discussed and stipulated by that time. And that's when this country grew to a level where the element of those issues to do with ballot box were stolen, whatnot, came to an end. And that is when we arrived to a point where elections are declared at the point of the polling station and laid to the tallying center. If it's presidential votes, they have been relied to the bombers of Kenya. And this is what has happened. And I can tell you, reader, there before, we have serious issues of what we call election malpractices, but today they are very minimal, I can tell you. We have graduated from those elements that actually you could win at the polling station, but at the tallying center, you become a loser. Because other boxes are being brought in and are opened at the tallying center. But that particular window has been closed totally. So I can say, if there is an element we have not checked or done well, it could be very minimal, reader. And we cannot blame anybody. Because there is nowhere that actually any discussion of the transformation of this country's constitution is ever done without the presence of Raila Odinga. And without his...
If I hear you well, Mheshimiwa, you say there's nobody we can blame on this, but also to a large extent, and it's not just Mheshimiwa, the few people I have hosted or the many people I have hosted here, they tend to apportion blame to the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. And perhaps maybe in trying to solve the problems that bedevil us as a nation, we have looked at the trouble as though it is Right Honorable Raila Odinga, and maybe not the root cause as you rightfully put. What do you suppose is the biggest challenge in this nation? Because you will find Honorable Sankok saying that, you know, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga is the common denominator to troubles in this very country, and not just him. And most of the people are even looking at these demonstrations as though it's about the Right Honorable Raila Odinga trying to find a position in government, or perhaps trying to be called into this particular side. And you have even seen the newspaper, interestingly, the Standard newspaper speaks to the individuals that really would address this problem, at least that we have right now. And the faces that we see here, I would assume that all this is government and then Right Honorable Raila Odinga, as though to insinuate that this is the problem that we have. Do you suppose that this is the problem that we have, or he is the problem that we have? Then how do we address him? They say, aende akiendanga.
Well, Linda, many can steer the ship, but it takes a leader to chart the course. And to chart a course, you must get your bearing right and get the right direction, or else you'll be sailing into turmoils and tornadoes like the one we're having. You'll always be in crisis after crisis if you can't get the bearing and direction right. This country has always been, and by the way, sometimes I oppose those individuals who tend to say that we are just 60 years old, in independence, in quotes, but the foundations of our cultures, the foundations of our societies goes way before the invasion of the colonialists. And what we're dealing mostly with, and I think the canon they're using to measure and compare ourselves among the world, people use the colonial vestiges and the institutions that we've inherited, whose foundations were never for our freedom. If you look at their method of leadership, Willie Lynch write about the art of making a slave, and how do you maintain them? Key elements was cause distrust, divide and conquer. Set the tall one against the short one, the long nose against the short nose, light ones against the dark ones. And distrust are picked so well through Machiavellism, the Grecians and their concept, and you see where Greece has landed with their mindset and their thinking. Notwithstanding that in the world, there are also best practices, because even right now, our colony, like the British themselves, how are they ruling themselves? They don't have a written constitution where they even have enshrinement like picketing and all these other things that we are even debating and discussing here. Their constitution is not written. And they use the King James authorization, which takes you way back to spiritual foundation of the Bible. Go to Israel, where there was also Andamano like we're having right now. But the Prime Minister has to concede and listen to the people and postpone what? The judicial reforms that were causing people not to be settled. So, and not even here in South Africa, so Ramaphosa has reorganized his government. Yeah. But here we are dealing with the foundations of Machiavellism, where which were best perfected in the colonial farm, where you were dividing and then you were mistrust. You see, the vices were made, overcame the virtue. The abnormality are what are people setting as standards. We have an electoral system where it's all about who can deceive who can beat who can con who can buy who. Corruption reigns in our electoral process. And then we've been here. It has been deeply entrenched, even into the voter themselves, such that people no longer vote on the basis of issues, but they are voting on the basis of who can buy who. And Linda is not even now the politicians that we're pointing figures on, and I think that is where we're getting it wrong. Even when you parade those individuals, it is a societal issue that we need to readdress how we think and the type of leadership we are talking about. Because you may force somebody to be a leader, and probably him is just an agent of the colonial societies who would want to turn this economy into a supermarket economy. I was not impressed by the Kenya Kwanza government, who have now decided to privatize all our national production quotas. The things that were going to enhance our manufacturing, our industries, and the creation of jobs now are being privatized to external individuals. You've seen, like in Namumia.
How best could do you suppose that would have been handled? Because there's been that conversation of either leasing some of these entities or allowing that, for a certain period that the private entities come in to man so that at least we have it back.
If you can't produce as a nation, if you can't even produce what you're eating, it has to be produced for you, including toothpick by outsiders. We already have vast lands. Are you trying to say that we can't farm and till our land? We've been doing this before. I like some Jewish concept where they believe that money should not leave their hands until the 12th person. But here we have an economy where even before you put your money in your pocket, it's already gone outside. What mechanism are we going to do if we were even to address this? The currency inflation that we're talking about. Yeah. You cannot strengthen your currency if you can't produce. And this goes way back. Even now we are teaching our children. The education system should focus on how are we going to develop individuals who are going to be innovators, who are going to be manufacturers, who are going to be producers, not just study, get your certificate and look for employment.
But that's what we always...
These are challenges we are facing.
And I mean, these are facts that we understand. Mheshimiwa, I mean, left, right and center, even in parliament, you hear them speak of how we can get, creative, or we can get our young ones to be creative enough to, just form their own forms of employment as opposed to waiting on the government, and a couple of things that need to be done so that we improve the standards of life. But then again, why is it that we are not doing this? Even as you look at, then again, the aspect of what really could be the main problem, such that today we fail to address the high cost of living. We perhaps fail to look at the question of the electoral process, which Justice Juma has alluded to, on how faulty and it was then, and how it's likely to be in the event that some of these things are not addressed. And we look at an individual and say, let's point fingers. This is the common denominator of the problems that we face today.
One thing, Linda, we must not be hypocrites of our own. It is important to understand that, in fact, just 10 years ago is when we promulgated our constitution. And if amendments are so there, then so be it. But my biggest question is, the serious now debaters of constitutional amendment are the same authors of the Constitution, which we are operating on. But the only simple question is, were you hypocritically moving the Constitution to that direction at the point when it didn't favor you, then you now rescind from that particular direction and bringing in a new version?
And that's a common thing with the politician. And even in the
Leader, my question is,
do that a lot.
Should we, after every single election, make amendments?
Is there anything wrong with that? If at all these amendments
because surely,
good.
During the time of Isaac, that commission was fired before even the conclusion of their term. And they were fired because Raila was not satisfied with.
Perhaps it's Chebukati alone who's managed to finish his term.
Yes, and the new team of Chebukati came in, where the same component was part of instituting the Chebukati team. Then, at the time that the two elections that he were not in his favor, then these people became so big opponents of him. My biggest question is, are we expecting now to make amendment to have agents to manage these elections, or we can trust our own? Because these institutions will never be run by outsiders. Yeah? There has to be either Rida or himself or Kakuya to run these institutions. At what point should we trust the drivers of our institutions? Because it's like, yes, we can't trust body in that commission. Whom do you trust? Today, we are saying the 4 commissioners that actually purported to move out of the final tally of the election were genuine enough. To me, those guys, those were mockery. And those are people we can't trust in their offices. Because those are people who are just out to make this country burn. Yes, and that is it. At this point, a leader would ask you, at what point should we put the interests of this country ahead of everybody? Because if you will be always putting our vendetta in front, at what point in this country?
Do you think a normal, a common Kenyan is convinced and is happy of how the electoral processes have been conducted in the country, overlook the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, overlook Azimio? Do you suppose Kenyans are, satisfied of how the previous commissioners, coming to the very last ones, Chebukati, have handled the electoral processes? And I will ask you that. Upon response, I will loop in Justus, who was part of the few individuals that presented their names to be picked as, part of the select committee that was gazetted recently. And he will tell us how he felt about the process and whether it was legit enough and whether there is some essence of truth if the Right Honorable Raila Odinga or the Azimio team are, coming to speak to the fact that they really are not confident about the select committee and the process so far.
Reader, my position is the public is always in confidence with the institutions. But when politicians come out and start incitement, then their supporters will rally behind their statements. And this is the biggest problem we have in the country, that we are operating this country as if we have mass for hire, which is totally wrong. Because you may ask somebody who demonstrates the reason why to demonstrate. But you tell you, Baba is on the street, and the Baba has called the demonstration. Then he has to be part of the demonstration. But inside his mind, he does not know why he's demonstrating.
You
or
think
the reason
so?
to demonstrate.
You think so?
Yes, I think so.
And love again my director to tell me whether we are set with that story by, that is from the Interior Ministry in relation to some of the things that we need to do, as well as that story that is in relation to the cost of living, and that is according to the ratings that we have today. Tom Wolf, releases these ratings that speak to the high cost of living, and this is one of the reasons why the Azimio team is in the streets. And you want to tell me that Kenyans really do not understand what...
The other thing I want also to mention is now this clamor of the panel of commission selecting. That panel, Reader, to me, I can't see any big query against it. Because the panel is a panel that is constituted from institutions, represented from various institutions. And these institutions are Kenya institutions. What method or methodology should we use to mechanize this if that methodology is not working? We have the previous one where political parties were also given a full mandate of this, and there has never been any single day that we have considered elections of presidential election. We have been considering the governor election, the senators election, the members of National Assembly elections, but in terms of the presidential election, there has been always quelling after that.
But even before and during the times of Jubilee Party, and Mheshimiwa here was a member of the Jubilee Party, at least this time around 2022, we did not witness so much of contestation in relation to the results or the outcomes of the various other posts, that is the 5 below the presidential vote. We did not have much of petitions in court compared to the other one where there was plenty of petitions, and sometimes we asked ourselves, at what point will the leaders work for the people? Governor is in court, in, out, trying to defend their win, and the members of parliament as well. Like this time around, it was not minimal. Yeah, it was minimal. But here we are. You have spoken to the fact that right from the word go, you were barred and you were locked, and you feel like it wasn't in order. Perhaps staged a legal battle, successful and successful. Here we are, and we have a president already. Do you think, or do you agree to what Mheshimiwa says, that most of the Kenyans really just dance to the tune of the politician, or there is valid reason for some of them to hit the streets because they feel like there are some things that need to be addressed, even as you narrate to us your experience on the process of getting the select committee to oversee the process of getting commissioners.
And also, he proposed to us and to Kenyans what to do, what was lacking in that panel.
Any nation with foresight, thanks Mheshimiwa for also adding to the question, any nation with foresight would not wake up just to react to issues like though they happen accidentally. Election is not an event. Election is a process. And by the time you get to election, there is pre-election, there is post-election, and there is electoral period. And if you get pre-election wrong, you will not get election period right. If you get election period wrong, you will never get post-election period right. Now, in the pre-election, there are a number of expectations. And I think, Linda, you guys have been covering even our live press conferences that we've been actually consistently informing the public about regarding the process of election. And actually, the process of the election we had was had a number of factors that left a lot to be desired. Us as Justice and Freedom Party, we did not actually keep quiet. We rendered solution. This same Chebukati, when he was caught up in a committee of election preparedness chaired by the Chief Justice, Justice and Freedom Party wrote a letter and told him, what perception are you giving? Are you handing over the independent of IEBC to organizations whose mandate are already spelled out and we know and understand what they need to be doing? When the executive also had an hand and was interfering with the electoral process, we called out, we did not keep quiet. But when the IEBC itself also is not living up to election requirements, because the election, according to the constitution, because it's not an imagination. Already we have a constitution that is governing us. And then if we can't follow the constitution, then anarchy, which we are seeing, because people have refused to let institutions work. The moment institutions are interfered with, definitely the reverse will be anarchy. Election should be simple. It should be free and fair. It should be verifiable. Yesterday I was involved in a discussion where people were trying to convince me how a percentage can be more than 100%. When you say 100%, 100% can be 100% plus 1.99, stuff like that. Where I'm like, okay, wait a minute. What is informing? Because, when you're talking about 100%, we have absolute number of registered voters. That we know these were the number of voters who were registered, and these were the number of voters who turned for voting. And we are getting our percentage from that absolute number. We are not using the percentages to inform the absolute number. But when things are not simple, people will start to bring complications just to justify their wrongs so that somebody may feel right. But you may feel right, but will you function right? You see, those are the questions.
Those are the questions,
Yeah, because the challenges we are having in this country is when individuals choose to be greater than the institutions that should govern us. Populism and personism. We just been treated with a lot of fanfare and a lot of PR, when in the actual sense, we have skyrocketing living standard. You look at even dollar. Right now, we can't even borrow money from outside because of the cost of the dollar.
Wait until
you don't even see we've put a pause on the business community when we are talking about the business environment. You are still looking for investors where locally here there are no investor confidence. I'm talking about PRs and populism, which has not been friendly, and they keep on infiltrating the institutions, weakening the institutions. Where do they begin with? I called out President Ruto on interfering with the Political Parties Act. When any given political party assign themselves to a coalition agreement and they deposit that coalition agreement with the registrar of political party, that party must be held accountable. What do they signed? Any party, member of a political party who goes and promote ideology of a different political party cease to be a member of that political party, and if they have conscience, they should resign. But here is a case where we are having all manner of bad manners. And they're being rewarded by the same person who, in quotes, is telling you, I'm trying to strengthen institutions. So the institution of parliament was weakened when people could not even thereby follow the simple agreements they signed to bring them to power. So if you've weakened the parliament, where else can we weaken? Can we say that judiciary is also weakened? Can we say that IEBC select panel is also having questions? And these are the things that inform discussions. Because if you keep on capturing institutions for your own personal gains, yet you are in an environment where you're also competing. And we are talking about best practice and setting up good examples if we are to think about next generation, not just next election. And these individuals who are so caught up with the next election and they're sacrificing the next generation, they have no interest of the citizen at all. Their interest is what should come first. Sometimes we're even suffering. Look at how they're being tear gas in the street. They don't feel us. They would rather fleece you. And these are the bad manners which, when you're asking me what should be the way forward, they are the things that we need to start addressing and let the institution function guided by the constitution.
These are politicians paid to politic, with interest. And just like I would want to protect my job, like I would want to be seated on this seat, for the next 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years. I think it's the same way Honorable, Mheshimiwa here would wish to go to his people and tell them, accord me another chance.
Through the law, not illegally. Exactly.
And another chance. You have been blamed, or it is being alleged that the Kenya Kwanza government is poaching. That one we have witnessed.
Violating political parties.
That one we have witnessed. And perhaps he says, there are mechanisms to that. Can you defect from this and go back and seek fresh mandate from your people? Is that what we have witnessed?
No, those who are anarchy that is now leading to these anarchies that we're having. Treachery begets treachery. Now people have been planting bad seeds and they're expecting to reap and harvest good fruits. It will not happen.
Beyond poaching, that your interest is largely on 2027, and it is okay if you are focused on delivering for the people of Kenya, so that when you go back to seek for fresh mandate, you say, it is on the track record, it is seen, we have done this, allow us a chance to continue with the development projects. But that is not what Kenyans see today. Can you get yourself off the hook of these allegations that yours is the interest of politics in 2027, yet you're not doing much to help the people of Kenya, in as much as you're going to tell me it's only 6 months or 7 months into government?
One thing, Linda, let me tell you, and very honestly, politics is a game of interest. And at the tail end of the last parliament, you realize most of these changes of what we call election process were changed at the tail end of that house. And remember, the powers of the IEBC was removed from IEBC and were vested to the registrar of political parties. And that's what happened at that tail end. So nobody can start to say that IEBC was the one which was handling issues to do with the registered voters and everything, because that was a package which was removed from the domain or docket of the IBC to registrar.
Yeah.
Number two, why was this done? It was a political hypocrite. Why am I stating this? The same law which now crafted this arrangement of political alignment was also done at that tail end.
Yeah.
And that is where there was a window of only distinguishing yourself from that package at least within 6 months timeline. And that timeline was expiring at December. Anybody who crossed before, you cannot blame William Ruto, because there is the individual who signed those memorandum with his political alignment, and he was never been caned or pushed to get out of it. So if there were anything to go by what we call penalties, then
it is for the
Azimio team to follow that chain, and look for the penalties to deal with those who break out.
Who's gaining from it?
But for sure,
who is gaining?
There is no way that you can stand at this particular forum and blame William Ruto's government. William Ruto's government has a duty to make sure that they have numbers in the floor of the house for their agenda to move on. So they must persuade those members who are elected, no matter whether you are independent, no matter where you are coming from, but you are a member of the floor of the house. So that at the point of any vote, you can vote with the government side.
Honorable Gakuya here will remind you that he was elected on a Jubilee ticket.
Yes.
You know,
and they crossed and did all manner of things.
He was in
and
UDA.
They survived.
He kept on telling me that it's Jubilee by heart. No, it was UDA.
Jubilee was my party. My heart was always in UDA.
With all due respect.
Yes.
Because you see, the law or the best civil society is where individuals are the laws themselves, and you don't wait for the police to force you. Actually, human beings have tendency of rebelling when you compel them,
and that's why we have courts to redress.
If we have individuals who are law abiding, if we have individuals who knows and exalt best practices, then this country will go way further. Because what are holding us back right now is lack of proper vision, guided by the functional institution, because it is a functional institution is synonymous with economic development. They say a good democracy is good economy. And the moment you're practicing bad democracy, definitely you'll always end up with bad economy. Is that the desired result?
No.
So for us to get good economy, we must have functional institutions. But if we have individuals who have no ethics, have no moral, they can violate, and they make that as a standard, and they even normalize it and laugh about it, and say that, politics is a game of interest. Any interest that supersedes citizen interest is bad interest. And those are the bad leaders who need to be voted out. But if we keep on rewarding these guys, and they actually sometimes are not even being rewarded. It's a lot of gerrymandering around the electoral process, where it's all about manipulation, and then they're manipulated and sat down. Even when you leave them to perform, they can't function because they threw merit outside the window. They rewarded their cronies and their friends with those nominations. And once they are presented with the opportunity to serve, Linda, again, they present the citizen with the worst case scenario of another wasted 5 years. And as you're wasting your 5 years, the global community is not at rest. They're not wasting, they're not pausing. Guys are thinking and they're innovating. Science is getting to a higher level. Yet some colonialists will be busy sponsoring your education to keep it retarded so that you remain servants forever. But it's only our leaders who can get us out of this web. But unfortunately, we are still ending up with leaders who can't think with their head, only think with their stomach. Instead of filling the citizens, they would be quick to even sacrifice them. Look at the scenarios that are happening right now. They do not even care. No wonder I classify them as a fox and a wolf who would rather eat the citizen. And my call for the citizen is that you are the one actually who have the sovereign authority. If anybody needs to eat, it should be you. And why the process is skewed, the citizens have a right to be informed and to be sensitized to understand electoral process. Because there's a dire need of participation of citizens in the electoral process. Failure to have informed citizen means we will have leaders who cannot be accountable. And if we can't put our leaders to account. They are wasting our money. These guys don't have money. We are the ones who are paying them. It's our at our taxes.
Where are we going wrong?
They have even gone to an extent where now they are overburdening us because they have inflated the tax instead of engaging on mechanisms to bake the bigger bread. Then they are just looking at the tax and beginning and ending with the tax.
And before I ask you, Mheshimiwa, whether you can look, into the camera and promise the people of Kenya, at least some level of sanity 5 years from now, if you will still be holding government, if you will still be the representative of the people of Embakasi North in relation to, long-term solutions to the problems that bedevil us, structures, formation of policies and structures that are good enough that even upon the exit of the Kenya Kwanza government, the future is guaranteed. That because the problems that we're having today are problems that are not fashioned by the Kenya Kwanza government, and that we acknowledge because we say you're only 6 months into government. The high cost of living, if there is a problem in relation to that, must have started from the predecessors.
Long time before.
All that. So would you look into the camera and tell the people of Kenya that the Kenya Kwanza government is going to undo this? That you will answer. But then allow us a moment of silence to condole with the people of Banisa upon the loss of their Member of Parliament Kulo Maalim Hassan, who passed on while receiving treatment at Aga Khan Hospital in Nairobi. And we all have the details in relation to this. Why I'm bringing this on board is because, well, must be your friend because you sit, in the same house. That is, as you prosecute,
same cabinet.
Yes, and cabinet and all that. And government, same government, to speak to the issues of the people of Kenya. These are some of the individuals that proceeded to this other side immediately after elections. And well, we're not here to condemn and all that. But this is a clear indication that we are staring at a by-election, right?
Oh, yeah.
How do we go about this?
Unless we conclude the process of reconstituting the commission, there can't be an election. Because the elections cannot be done by the Secretariat. The law is very clear that it's only the commission which can deal with issue to do with elections. And therefore, since we have none in the office, then the people of Banisa have to stay without a member for a duration of time until when this matter will cool down. And then,
are these some of the things that we did not envision, that we would have envisioned, that perhaps maybe the likes of Azimio would have said, it was too quick to focus on rooting out these 4 commissioners that could have easily handled the process?
Actually, the problem is not even Ruto's. That one, if I look at it, because the procedure...
Linda, let me tell you something. My good gentleman here was very clear at the beginning that too long sun make light. So retaining the 4 commissioners was equally wrong. Yes, because the indication that they gave to Kenyans is that they are loyal to their partisan already. And they are partisan to a single-handed side. That could not allow them to serve Kenyans in an equality way. And therefore, they deserved that fire. Yes, they deserved to be fired. And what I would request is that, in fact, this particular clamor of reconstitution of commission should be given an opportunity so that we can reconstitute and have commissioners in office. Because this is not the only case. We may have other cases to follow. And when the office is vacant, it tells you there's nothing much you can do. And you leave those people, those good people of Banisa, to suffer and failing to have somebody who can represent them for a duration that actually they couldn't desire. And coming back to where you asked me, let me tell Kenyans very clearly that my friend has just alluded that, in fact, we have been given 5 years and wasted it to drain. But I can tell him that is not the direction. And I can just assure Kenyans that they are the people with the mandate to elect officers. Yes, he was very categorical that the people of Kenya have that sovereignty to either delegate or use their power directly at a certain time. And therefore, it is the people of Kenya who went to election and who voted leaders to their offices. Today, it's only the people of Kenya who elected a certain member of parliament who have a duty to say our member is wrong as he's going the wrong direction. Because they are the voters. They know why they voted you under this UDM party. They know the reason why they refused to vote Jubilee Party and they voted UDA Party. That is purely their business. And today, we cannot blame them. And we cannot say that Kenyans are very foolish, they only vote where the money is. That is not true. And that one I say no. Kenyans are very wise enough. And they know where they are going, they know what they are doing. And it is very important also to respect the will of the people. When the people decides, then the country decides. And we cannot start to say, I have my followers, because you have 48% of them. Because the one who took the office takes the mandate to represent the whole nation.
And if you take an office, like for instance, the people of Embakasi North have, accorded you that chance to serve them at the level of parliament. And that is after you went to them under the UDA party ticket and said, I seek fresh mandate to serve you as a people. You all witnessed what happened with Jubilee, but here we are and we soldier on. And then they accord you that mandate. And, not even a month or two later, you start speaking the language of Azimio without having to go back to the same people to tell them, my people, I come back to you and I request that we start speaking the language of Azimio. How then do you confidently stand to say that, this
should receive new mandate?
First and foremost, I would tell you, reader, you must not communicate with your people through media.
Okay.
Every politician knows how he communicates with his people.
Okay.
And personally, as I do my campaign, I never wish to campaign through media or social media. Me, I deal with the people direct. And that's my nature of politics.
And so you agree to be right for
and I can tell you, at the tail end, I was wooed even by the former President Uhuru Kenyatta to get back to Jubilee.
Yeah.
But at some point I asked my people, is this the right direction? And they did want me, go there and go alone. So I also heed their voice. And every other politician knows how to communicate with his people. And let me tell you, that mandate is only reserved to those people. Tomorrow, if that fellow or a member of parliament or a governor or whoever will require to seek fresh mandate after 5 years, he will just get by the same people.
What about the party manifesto? What about
the money manifesto is there. I am not against it.
Yeah.
And the money manifestos are purely there to just to bridge you to your destination.
What about party loyalty?
No, listen to me, reader. Listen to me.
Yes.
In case you violate those laws, those what we call political parties law, one, there is a process to redress, and that's why we have court of law. If in case somebody have gone against the political party's act of his party, then the party has every jurisdiction to redress the matter in court, and court verdicts can be always respected. Yes, and this is what has been always happening.
All right.
Yes, because for sure, let us agree that in fact the law is not isolating some areas. It is very clear that there are levels of appeal. If the party feels that the candidate has gone long, then they have the mechanism to redress.
There are legal mechanisms as to how individuals then get representation immediately. There's a demise of their representative or something happens and maybe they decide I'm going to decamp to a different party and I come back to you to seek fresh mandate. What happens to the people of Banisa in this very case? Do you suppose in the shortest time they'll get this representation?
The replacement of the IEBC commissioners is clearly spelled out in the constitution. Actually, 6 months before the exit of the office, we ought to have had new commissioners.
Okay.
Why Jubilee government went silent on this? The interest now, actually they brought us to where we are right now. And anyone can take advantage of the current situation. And this is why it was uncalled for to wound out of office the 4 commissioners. Actually, I listened to the 4 commissioners without bias. I was not listening to Azimio's side because I was not that part of Azimio. Neither was I part of Kenya Kwanza. And listening to the case that they were putting on the table, there were a number of violations that the former chairman actually did not follow right. It's just that in our court ruling, but if you look at the Supreme Court ruling, I think they were also clear about that, that the chairman acted unilaterally.
Yeah.
Whereas previously, in 2017, a court ruling, actually there were even directives in terms of how the commission needed to function. So they had various concerns, which they were raising legitimately. But since already, this partisan approach where people just think that anybody objecting ni mutua, and I think that's the divide we need to get out of, and think critically and think futuristically. Somebody did not see ahead. And that lack of foresight now, everybody's in chaos, wondering how do we go about these elections and how do we conduct them. We are at a crisis, which is brought about by an individual who could not see ahead. They were consumed by vendetta, they were consumed by vengeance, and here we are, their vengeance. And this is National Assembly, because they're the ones who created the tribunal. And you saw what the tribunal was up to, and then definitely everybody, as we talk today, are not in the office.
Yeah.
And we've heard what were coming out. So honestly speaking, Kenya needs visionary leadership. And when I talk about functioning institutions, institutions are guided by, like now political parties are guided by manifestos, and they are guided by political parties' act, and also political parties' bylaws. Every political party have their own constitution, including code of conduct, where if you see some are even promoting violence, if you look at their code of conduct, the code of conduct spells out categorically that violence is an offense.
Yeah.
So when you see individuals are functioning or encouraging, allowing us to enter into this crisis and anarchies, some are intentional, and whoever is benefiting from it is the person now we need to actually put to question.
Yeah.
That is where they're asking where does the buck stop? The buck stops with the beneficiary of the crisis. And is this crisis helping the citizen? As you've mentioned, that commission should always remain functional according to the Constitution. Now that it has not operated correctly, we are in the process of replacing the commissioners. The challenge we had was that the current government seems to have favor with the various select panel, because we're looking at the Public Service Commission. The others feel that they are partisan because they are government employees. We have Public Service Commission, Parliamentary Service Commission. There's concern that there's Kenya Kwanza dominance and influencing, and we are having religious community who actually have done this country a bit of disservice.
You think?
Because most of the time they are most of the time, they are independent organizations who should be the backbone that the society stands on and a place of refuge that you can run to.
Yeah.
But the moment they choose or they become partisan and they are seen to incline towards a specific direction, definitely it's a political perception, even if they don't prove. Some would assume that already even that other side. So when he factor in and looks at his numbers, even when we were coming back to political parties, where we were part of the election, which was a process that you would not desire. I've gone through elections, but that one, in my records, I'll tell you that was one of the elections you should not even participate in.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, you will find that Kenya Kwanza got a friendly what? Their friendly guy. So if you number all this, definitely one will qualify and say that the process is favoring what? A specific player. And by design is going to reward a specific player.
Yeah.
And this is why other players are getting concerned, and they're beginning to question why should we go to 2027 when we know what is going to inform 2027 is already skewed.
Yeah.
So can you also tell us
if we were white,
what was the best methodology to nominate this?
And acknowledging that you are part of this process, and it was a legal process.
That's my point.
Yes.
If you allow these institutions, if Parliament was functioning independently, and no one had a perception that Parliament is captured, no one would be worried that whoever Parliament is going to produce will be inclined towards an individual.
But we all know that we're a society that is always
the,
litigating, and therefore...
The litigation comes because people don't agree, or some people are making intentional mistakes.
What are the chances? Okay, well, the intentional mistake bit is a concern, but what are the chances that people would then agree most of the times?
Yes, that's my point. So that's why when you know that this process requires a wider consultation and major stakeholders involvement, make sure that the process goes like that. But if you hijack it and personalize or individualize it like it's your own process, and I'll do it whether you like it or not, these are the things that lead us to anarchy, which ought not to be. If somebody is sensitive enough, because when you talk about the nation is just not, we have over close to 90 political parties. And if all of them need to participate in this process, you need to make them comfortable. But if one political party takes it and says, it's my interest first, you take care of yourself, and they're calling you manner of names and shouting and insulting others, and you've seen the things the guys are doing even in the media when you're covering them, it is not leading to a sane society. If anything, those are the instruments that are brewing the anarchy that we are encountering today. People need to start listening to each other, and any leader who is occupying an office must be objective and futuristic. Must think about tomorrow. If I'm out of this office, what will happen? And by now, you are a testament to the fact that those who did not rule well in the previous regime, a number of things are coming to bite them, isn't it? And under this regime also, the people who are not working correctly, the same thing will follow. But this vicious cycle can be stopped by doing things right.
Okay.
When people refuse to do things right, that is when we put our foot down and say, even if it was not Azimio in the street, even us as a party, we have our own ways of how to address it. You'll probably find us in court. Justice and Freedom Party was one of the petitioners of BBI in last election.
Yes.
And BBI was one concept of the national government, which began, and it left some of us out. Tukaambiwa the trainers left, and no one can stop reggae. When we were told no one can stop reggae, and we knew whatever is taking place has certain provisions that actually are a bit dangerous to our end, what did we do? We went to court. And here we are, BBI stopped. So if people think that they can just, with impunity, pick up the national instrument and go take it their own way, I think there is no room for that in the council.
Allow us to take a quick short break, Senior, and then come back on that very point. Thank you.
Here, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics. Sabak.
This is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, you know, like this is alive. Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us every morning.
Kwa muonekano wao hauwezi ukajua waliopitia. Kwa sura zao zinapong'aa hauwezi ukafahamu changamoto zao. Nyuma yao ipo stori na historia. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi tunakupa nafasi kuweza kuwafahamu kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mutu.
Your health matters, and Body Garage is here to guide you on it.
Someone's after using the medication, the virus number of the HIV in someone's body will start to go.
My medication, wherever I go, I must make sure I'm committed to my medication. Yes. And I should watch what I'm eating. I should not just eat or from everywhere, or not just eat anything.
We talk mental, physical, and spiritual health. Join us every Thursday at 8 p.m.
And we are discussing what is happening in the country. The Azimio protest slated for today. Will they happen? Will they not? Is a question of wait and see, as much as the leadership therein insists that it has to be on. And the government on this other side taking a hardliner position to say that it is not time to negotiate. Negotiate they will not, but they will make sure that the people of Kenya are protected from any form of ramifications that would come out of this state of anarchy. In studio with me is Honorable Member of Parliament of Embakasi North, Gakuya Jimmy, as well as the party leader, Justice and Freedom Party, Justice Juma. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for the great insights that we are trying to unpack. Mheshimiwa, I picked it from you, right before we took that break.
I was to interpret and just get some concern from my panelists. In that particular aspect of the constitution of that panel of handling the constitution of the IEBC commissioners. And my question is, what would be the right modality to nominate these commissioners? Should we have left this field to the political parties and say, yes, this is the side, this is Kenya side, bring this percentage according to your numbers and bring this size according to your numbers? Or was it of importance to also give opportunity to other institutions? Because I don't think that elections are only purely for political parties. It belongs to other stakeholders. And therefore, there was an essence of bringing other stakeholders in this particular process, so that at least people could feel, yes, whatever process is on is purely a trusted process. Because here, I don't see where the doubts are coming, because if the doubts are coming because there is a candidate who is coming from Parliamentary Service Commission, then what about the other stakeholders? Could be all of them be compromised? Should we say that the religious must have a compromised candidate? Should we say RSK must have a compromised candidate? Should we say the Public Service Commission should also have a compromised candidate? Or what could be the best methodology? Because we are saying, stop the process, let us talk. And even though you go on that process, we cannot agree with it. At what point? And what are we what is expected to change the scenario?
Well,
and give us the best answer.
Valid questions right there.
Actually, Kenya Kwanza is one government I was to advise. Though I like being given a check if I was to give advice. But this time around, they just have to listen and talk. Failure to which, they may not be talking about the government. They may find themselves in a worse, terrible place than to listen. Well, listening require that we incorporate the concerns that people have. Because is it
about the government? Is it about the president to address these concerns? Is it the president or the law? And I think Mheshimiwa was asking
the person who is capturing these institutions is the president.
Is it?
That's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Because with the moment you are excluding other stakeholders, then definitely you are making them vulnerable, which is not good. But even if you were to make them vulnerable, you should substitute that with merit. And what has been missing in this process is meritocracy.
Why would the president do this? And I mean, he's capable of doing this. But why is it that then these individuals that we have bestowed to look, or to perhaps man these institutions, why is it that they're being coerced to that level of acceptance? Because remember, we're talking about the elections that were nullified.
Right.
That was the 2017 general election that was nullified. And, it was historic. And I mean, the world over, people could not understand how then the 7 Supreme Court judges would reach this conclusion. And you know what? We all felt like, finally, we are taking a good precedence that an independent institution can function independently without being coerced by politicians and all that. Why is it then that there's a problem with the ones that we have to literally say no to the president if he presents some request of capture or some form of capture.
That is why you allow the process to follow. And Linda, you see when they are, intrusion, the way they happen, what we compromise are the quality and the meritocracy of this institution. And I think that has been one of the major challenges we have, where people fill these places with their cronies instead of people who have merited it. The reason why we suffered major voter apathy in the last election, remember they expected to register over 19 million votes, isn't it? And they ended up not even about a quarter percentage turned out, those who are eligible for registration or to participate in the vote, the voting process. But also, if you look at the total general voter turnout, even in the election as well, you'll find about 8 million guys did not turn out to vote, isn't it? So if you're looking at these trends, what keeps Kenyans off from deciding or determining their own future is because of some people who are sleeping in the job, or there is some institutions that are not functioning. Why there is no effective voter education? Why there is no effective voter engagement? Recently, we were just looking at the post-election evaluation, which was done by IEBC. And as political parties, we ask IEBC to take our view and have a report, post-election report, informed by the experiences of political parties. But what did IEBC do? Retreated with religious society, civil society, and passive stakeholders who did not actively participate in the electoral process, and got their view, then called political parties for 3 hours, where they used that 2 hours to represent, another 30 minutes to do their own administration, and then 30 minutes to hear your view. Definitely, by design, they were like, we don't need your view. And why it doesn't need your view, you're wondering then, what will inform the reforms that we will need in the next election if they're not reflected in the report. So some people function and utilize this institution not for the good of the country, but you wonder what good then, or what intention are they having if it's not for the good of the country.
All right,
these are
should
the things
we then
that we
say
must avoid.
The problems that we have are beyond levels of us managing them? Domestically,
not necessarily.
Locally.
Not necessarily.
We come back and respond to that after listening to what Willie Dennis Jero, our correspondent in Naivasha, Nakuru County, standing at the terminus, of Nairobi, perhaps those ones that would be traveling from Naivasha to Nairobi, and speaks to a few of them on what they feel about the state of the nation. Willie, if you can hear me.
Alarmed by Monday's Azimio's violent protests here in Nairobi.
My colleague in studios, Linda, coming to you live from the main Naivasha, Nairobi terminus here in Naivasha, where hardly there is no activity. I'm told by the management of this Nairobi Naivasha United Service that since 4 a.m. only 2 vehicles have ferried passengers to Nairobi. Just to paint a picture on the reality about this place at such an hour, it's a beehive of activity where business people move in and out of this town. But as I take you just around, this is just a third vehicle possibly now leaving for Nairobi, and all drivers are not certain of the situation as it will be. Because since these passengers, as you can see here, they have been here for quite some time, awaiting a colleague and a fellow passenger so that the vehicle can actually fill. This is the third vehicle since 4 a.m. And on the other side, as you can see, there is a handful of drivers, as you can see here, who are just settling idle with no much activity. They say it is uncertain about the economy status of this country. Ndugu, hebu nieleze kwa jina lako, uko hapa saizi unafaa kuwa ukisafiri. Hali iko vipi na mambo ya maandamano?
Hali na maandamano imetuadhiri sana kiuchumi. Tuliamuka saa 11 hata saa hii hakuna abiria.
Ni hofu ya kuelekea jijini ama hakuna wasafiri?
Hofu ni maandamano ya fujo, poteza mali, watu wanaogopa safari Nairobi.
Nikuulize, wakati kunakuwa na vurugu kama hizi ambazo zimeshuhudiwa siku za nyuma, kwa siku mnapoteza labda kiwango gani cha hela?
Tunapoteza pesa mingi sana kwa siku. kama hii. Sasa tuko na magari karibu 300. Na kama leo gari zenye zitabeba hapa ni karibu gari 10 ama 15. Kwa hivyo tunapoteza pesa mingi sana.
Ndugu, karibia hapa unieleze, wewe ni mchuuzi katika stage hii na lazima unapata riziki yako kutokana na mauzo hapa. Hali iko vipi? Jitambulishe kwa watazamaji.
Mimi kwa majina yangu mwenyewe mimi naitwa George Joroga, ama kwa jina lingine wananitanga Shoba. Na kwa vile ningependa kusema kwa hii wakati wa maandamano, mimi naweza sema ni wakati umekuwa mgumu sana kwa sababu yenyewe uchumi umerudi chini na hawasafiri kwa vile ambayo wanakuwa wanasafiri kwa hii stage kutoka hapa kuelekea mpaka Nairobi. Imekuwa na upungufu wa wasafiriaji wenye wanasafiri kutoka hapa. So ningeweza kusema ni wakati umekuwa mgumu sana kwa sababu biashara zimeharibika sana, na mpaka vile unaona ile siku nyingine biashara zinaendelea. Ikifika ni siku ya maandamano, ni siku ambayo inakuwa na tatizo mingi sana kwa sababu biashara zinakuwa zimesimama zote, na tunakuwa na wakati mgumu sana kwa sababu hata sio biashara tu za wasafirishaji ama magari inasimama kwa stage, ni biashara mingi sana zinakuwa zimesimama kwa sababu sisi wote tunakuwa tumetegemea Nairobi, ndio inatuleteanga riziki yetu ya kila siku. So vile ningeweza kusema President William Ruto ni vizuri sana wangeweza kupata kikao, wakae chini na Raila Amolo Odinga ndio waweze kusuluhisha hii mambo yao, wajue venye Kenya itakuwa na uchumi mzuri na vile wananchi watakuwa na wakati mzuri wa kusikizana.
Ni mambo yao ama ni mambo yetu? Kiongozi wa Azimio amesikika kwamba akisema ni mambo ya wananchi. Na wanapokaa chini, ni masuala gani ungetaka yakazungumziwe?
Ile swala ambayo mimi naweza tupenda wakati wamekaa chini wazungumzie ni kuhusu ushikanaji pamoja na kusikizana kiukabila, yani watu wakuwe na umoja, washikane pamoja kwa sababu umoja ni nguvu. Na ningependa sana waongelee kuhusu biashara. Kama ni wakati wa kuuza kitu, ni uchumi, vitu zote zimepanda kwa bei ya juu. Ni vizuri sana watengeneza wakati wa uchumi. Kama ni kitu ambayo transport, hiyo kitu ichunguzwe sana kwa sababu hiyo ndio inafanya kila kitu iende ikipanda juu, na tunakuwa na wakati mgumu sana wa kukua mtu kama ako na biashara kutembea hapa na pale inakuwa ni ngumu kwake.
Okay, asante, wacha tumsikie tena mwingine hapa. Ndugu, jina la kwako?
Kwa majina naitwa Kiptom Tai. Mimi ni muuzaji hapa stage ya Nairobi, Naivasha. Kwa kweli tumekuwa tukiadhirika kweli kwa hii maandamano ya Azimio. Mimi sina mengi sana, lakini ningependa tu wakubwa wote wawili waache ile uhasama yao, waungane pamoja na wajenge hii taifa yetu juu tunawategemea. Hata hivyo vile wanasema ati sisi ndio tunalia sana, hapana, wao ndio wanataka hiyo kiti iwafaidi wao wenyewe. Hiyo hasama yao iishe, hata sisi tufaidike juu fahari wawili wakipigana nyazi ndio umia, ndio sisi ndio tumeumia kweli. Ukiona hapa Naivasha, stage ya Naivasha Nairobi, hakuna magari ama hakuna wateja wenye wanasafiri, na hapo ndio tunapata mapato yetu. Nashukuru.
Asante. Linda, as you can have it there, if my camera person could be able to pan a crossover, there is also another terminus there as referred to as Kasese, and to the far end we have 2NK Sacco just far across. As you can see the situation here, hardly we have passengers moving to Nairobi, and it's a quagmire for the economic status of the people who depend on businesses transacting across this region. Just to bring our viewers up to speed, I'm yet to catch up with some experts regarding to the information that we already have, is that so many flower farms are here in this part of the country, and the flower farm workers have to work extra hard like yesterday and make sure that the freight they take to Nairobi actually takes place for twofolds. What was supposed to be taken to Nairobi today is actually done yesterday. So what was supposed to be taken to Nairobi yesterday and today simultaneously is done yesterday, and this overwhelms the workers in these flower farms. In a subsequent bulletin, we'll be handling that, and we'll be finding experts who are going to be shedding light on actually how the situation is across the flower farms, because seemingly most of of them are not willing to talk on this subject. And again, notably, is that if at all we have to bring the cost of living to a standard level, the power sector in this country has to actually be taken into cognizance. Factoring this, most of the independent power producers across the country depend on diesel-generated power, whereas we have hydro, we have geothermal, we have wind, and these are some of the things we are supposed to be exploring and maximizing, so that actually, depending on what we have, we will bring the cost of power down, and the price of bread, price of flour will subsequently come down. All of these things will be shedding light, finding experts who are going to be talking about these things in our subsequent bulletin. But from me here at this hour, I take it back to you in studio, Linda.
As the nationwide anti-government protest...
Thank you so much, Dennis Njiru, for the updates from Naivasha County. Interesting is to note that there's not much of cases of protest or this picketing that have been reported from Naivasha, that it has not been as active, but it's unfortunate that the ramifications of the same are being felt across the different parts of the country, all counties. And of course, let's take a sneak preview of what played out after the protest on Monday, and that is in relation to the cost of the same, before we come back to the gentleman to articulate on that.
As the nationwide anti-government protests went on in some parts of the country, businesses in Nakuru County went on uninterrupted, though on a downscale, with traders and those in transport industry calling for a peaceful environment to operate in.
Nafanya na kampuni ya Prestige Shuttles, na kama unavyoona hakuna wasafiri. Tulifungua kama kawaida saa 9, lakini kutokana na ile directive ya maandamano ni kama watu wamehofia kusafiri.
Tunasafirisha abiria kutoka Nakuru kwenda Nairobi. Magari zetu yako hapa na tunagoja iwapo kama tutapata, lakini hatujui. Lakini tunaomba tu jambo moja, ya kwamba viongozi wote wakubali kukaa chini na wapate jibu ambalo litasaidia wananchi wa kawaida.
Sisi kama wakaaji wa Nakuru, sisi tunasema ya kwamba tupewe wakati wa kufanya kazi. Tunataka amani katika hata taifa letu la Kenya.
In Thika Town, Kiambu County, it was business as usual. However, traders said that even in the absence of protest in the town, the impact of protests from other towns like Nairobi had affected their operations, with Nairobi being regarded as a major trade partner to many.
Kazi iko chini sana. Alafu tena tukisikia hii maneno ya maandamano pia, hata yeye inatuadhiri kwa sababu wale watu wanaendea vitu Nairobi town kuja hapa, inatuadhiri kwa kibiashara.
Some entrepreneurs dealing in land regretted that the sale of land has been faced by numerous challenges, a crisis that could worsen should the ongoing unrest continue. Some took issues with mass action organizers who they claimed were behind the downfall of their enterprises.
That one will kill a lot of businesses, will kill almost the whole industry. It will cripple everything. This is what we eat, this is our business, and we cannot just sit back.
Elsewhere in Kisii County, Azimio la Umoja woman representative Doris Donya Abori has condemned the current demonstrations organized by her coalition, saying they were counterproductive. Donya instead urged her leader Raila Odinga to explore other means of resolving the current impasse between the coalition and the Kenya Kwanza-led government.
Mimi ile jambo naweza ambia kiongozi wetu wa Azimio, kwa sababu niko Wiper, tuongee na if possible tujiulize nini ilifanya tukaanguka. Sasa kushinda ya kupeleka watoto wetu kwa street na kuswali tu. Maandamano tangu yanza kufanyika Kenya, watu wamefaidika namna gani?
Amani! Amani!
Chichi Josephine, TV47.
Maendeleo! Maendeleo!
Honorable Jimmy Gakuya, quite a long one there, but as well speaks to the cost of maandamano in the country. The Right Honorable Raila Odinga, we might want to overlook on this one, because then he's the Azimio party leader of opposition, perhaps a Kenyan just like me, a citizen that looks up to the government to have his, property protected, his life protected, his family, as well as the very same way Linda would be looking up to the government for this kind of protection. Maybe that informs the pictures that we have this morning and the individuals that have been captured on the paper as to the persons that the buck stops with. That President William Ruto, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, Inspector General Japhet Koome, the DPP Noordin Haji, Interior CS Kithure Kindiki, and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. If I am to read this picture beyond, it tells me that largely it is for the government to protect its people from this kind of losses that we are reporting this morning. Naivasha, I'll tell you, did not have much of the protest activities, but look at what is happening to them. Look at what is happening in other counties. Look at what is happening in Nairobi, in Kisumu. What is the government doing to help us with this hardliner position?
Linda, one thing, and that's why I have always been eroding that, in fact, we must put the interests of the country first. For failure to oversee that, then there's a serious lacuna, because demonstrations are economic sabotage. Totally. And you have just listened from the view, from those who are commentaries from every side of the country, including Kisii, where you are listening the supporters of Azimio themselves, agitating that let us address this matter on another angle, but not forcing this demonstration to the streets. Because what is happening when the economy is sabotaged on that big way, it tells you that the country is not improving.
What other angle? What other angle?
Dialogue? No.
Parliament?
One thing. Let us agree on one thing. And this is the reason why I have told you there before. When the crafters of this constitution were crafting this constitution, now the main crammer, who is Raila Amolo Odinga, was part of this process, but he was unable to oversee where, one, there was no any inclusion of creation of such an office of opposition leader, because the introduction was parliamentary, where then we have what presidential system, where we have minority and majority in the house. But there was a lacuna where Raila could be able to speak from the floor of the house. And I think if we would be having an opportunity to be in the floor, this matter of street demonstration would not be there. But since he has no room to enter to the house, then the lacuna is there, and he has to find his way.
He has representatives
to communicate.
He has representatives.
But he has
the
not,
leader of minority.
What is happening, Rida, is that he's not delegating that to the representative.
So it is about...
Of course, that's a work that should be done by the parliamentary representatives, which is not working. That now has made the Baba himself to take the mantle to the streets. But I could say this, that the route that we are taking is not very, very cordial to our people, because the Azimio followers are suffering, and everybody else, because this country does not belong to parties. This country belongs to citizens. And when you think that actually the one who will feel the pinch are those of the other side, then when the unga is at 250, it is across the board. Rida will be suffering, I will be what is equivalent suffering. So let us be at a close point where we can have a universe and discuss this matter on a sober way. And if there are issues that has to be addressed, should not be at the level of sabotaging economy. Yes, we look for mechanism. I think in our outside our constitution, there are mechanisms. We have elders, we have rural elders, we have elders who are Kikuyu elders, we have Kalenjin elders. Those elders can sit down. We have religious team can sit down and talk to these leaders, and these leaders can expose themselves and find a way what could be done. If there is issues that opening should not be directed to the street to kill the businesses, but should be at least look for another forum where these things can be addressed. And I am telling you, the mechanisms are not over. They're not over. The religious, instead of religious going to the press, the religious, look where Raila is. Talk to him. Look where the President Ruto is. Talk to him. Persuade them to have at least a front. A front where we are not going to sit to discuss about issues to share power, but issues of the importance of the country.
Yeah.
And I think that's the route to go.
Okay.
But you cannot dictate to say, open the server, where you know exactly that the servers, Ruto has no power to open the servers. Let us move to a discussion in a sober way and with reasonable areas of concern.
Issuance of a joint statement by the Western nations and the coming in of the Senator, US, as well as what it is that Mheshimiwa says, you know what, you don't have to do it in the public domain. Let's not have all these presses and all that. Can you speak to these leaders that it is too late for us to have local intervention? Look at the ramifications of what are there. And today, the latest report is that, well, fine, there's not much activity of demonstration, but literally there's nothing happening. It's like it's a holiday. Business is not being transacted as should have been. And therefore, there's quite an impact to these demos.
Very true, because actually, ideally, we were supposed to sort out our own issues.
Yeah.
And failure to which now we're inviting external forces. And I tell you, external forces, you may not like how they will take advantage of the scenario to also propagate and perpetuate their interests, which actually has been the case. And most of them sometimes even fuel these things, by the way, for purposes of taking advantage of sovereign geographical location like these ones.
Even as of now, I believe so.
Yes.
There have to be
an external
foreign interventions.
But you see, there's a genesis. And there's a genesis which has brought us where we are, and their parties. Because honestly speaking, picketing is not illegal constitutionally.
Yeah.
The only person that can render picketing or demonstration illegal is the judiciary. When you're talking about lapses in representation, this constitution envisaged functional institutions such that the oversight role was to be done by parliament. And the oversighting who? The executive. Actually, Mheshimiwa here is no longer a UDA government or executive. He is playing oversight role on behalf of the citizens. It's a national common purpose for all the parliamentarians, both the lower and the higher, if there's such an arrangement or hierarchy. And judiciary's mandate also is outrightly spelled out. You were saying that this time there was few petitions. Well, probably they could have been because of the bottlenecks. Because even the cost of petition this time was too expensive. You can't make justice be so expensive and expect people to run and do what? And follow. So if the institutions are not serving the purpose or functioning correctly the way they ought to function, we would not even need opposition leader there. The role of the parliament is to conduct oversight. But now if there is a parliament who is even rewarding the executive more to injure the citizen, what else do you expect citizens to do? These are the things that may mandate other recourses, you understand? So if the parliamentarians were actually representing our interest and managing even the borrowing caps instead of rewarding executive to go with the largesse and making budget that is citizen friendly, cutting recurring expenditures. I like the boldness of the parliament's advice on formation of creation of CAS, and of course we also saw the pronouncement of the judiciary on the same, but the executive has still continued. My brother, there are things which even if we go around how. There are some things that are violating the constitutional provision and order of civility, which may mandate what the things we are going through. But now the sad thing is, we can't also get provision on how to organize ourselves internally. And as a result, now we are exposing ourselves and our dirty linens with some people who are still speaking hard, and you're wondering what they're speaking hard to, because the hard stands these guys are taking are not even helping themselves. We've had people who were taking hard stands before, and we saw where they ended. And people are making pronouncements, and that's why I say talk about lack of foresight. Because if you're an elected leader, and you're making pronouncements which are sacrificing your future career, what type of a person would that be? I would say that is not a wise person. He's myopic. He doesn't have foresight. He's not thinking about tomorrow.
If they do not take a hardliner position,
yes.
What do they do?
Well,
bring Raila to the table, and then what? Again, historically, we have seen.
You see, it didn't even have to be Raila.
Yes.
When we have the national interest at heart, we will dispense discourses that have the nation's interest at heart. But when, and that will satisfy everybody, whether it's Raila or it is just as Juma. But the moment individuals are acting with impunity and tyrannical behaviors, the moment you are affronting various rights of any individual in this country, the law will catch up with you. And if the law fails to catch up with you because some people may not afford it, some can afford to go to the street now like they've done. What we could have done, and we can still do as leaders, is not to escalate this further. We can, just for one, embarrass the outsiders, tell them, yes, we make noise among ourselves, but when it gets this way, we can only solve them out. Because if you create a problem, you should always have a solution, bring solution to your problem. But if we cause problems and we can't even solve them, I think it becomes even worse of us. Because I expected the leaders and the various platforms. This is where even the political parties, PPLC would have come in handy, because PPLC is a dialogue platform for political discourse, where there is IBC, there is ORPP, and all the political parties to manage and review. By the way, even ORPP has buttons to press. If this political party is off, their binding provisions within the Political Parties Act and also the party bylaws that should hold these parties. And this is why you are seeing the Prosecutor General, you're looking at the IG, you're looking at the Interior, and then all these individuals have whatever it takes to render harmony in what we are having. But since people are refusing to act with good faith, we've ended up with this escalation. And who is suffering?
That you have refused to act in good faith as the government?
Well, one thing, the aspect that I'm unable to understand is where the government is failing to act in faith. Because one, you can't tell me that actually the IG will act in faith and allow demonstrations where thuggery is taking place. One thing, as much as the Constitution allows for this demonstration, it is very categorical. They have to be peaceful.
Yes.
But you have witnesses what is happening. It is happening, the demonstrations are happening, and thuggery in the same way.
Is it by design that these demonstrations are not peaceful, you think?
One thing is that the propagators of the demonstrations from the onset actually does not mean well.
Is it?
To the Kenyans.
And
because they have pronounced themselves, and the kind of crime they are inciting to the people is quite difficult. At the moment, they were just propagating to the people that actually they want to force themselves to the Statehouse. That's not a pronunciation that you should wake up with when you are calling for a demonstration. Because purely, are you telling Kenyans to move to Statehouse to take over the government?
Hold it right there. Is that the way to go? And the Interior CS then brings to the fore new policies that he supposed would be helpful to address the kind of animosity we witness, during and after the demonstrations. But before we look at them, allow us to shift gears or cross over to Kakamega County and as well listen to what Violet has in store in relation to what is playing out there. At least with Kakamega County, the once stronghold of the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, we have not witnessed much of activity in relation to them joining into the demos. But yes, Violet is there on standby to update us on what is there and what to expect. Vio.
Morning actually here in Kakamega County. Nothing much is happening in terms of demonstration or protests that were called by Azimio leader Raila Odinga. Last Monday we were able to see groups of people here in Kakamega County, which actually led to, or rather commiserated to MCA, nominated MCA arrested, and also some other 11 people were arrested here in Kakamega County who were demonstrating. But today we have actually seen some rounds, just vehicles of police just going around, but so far so good. We've not seen anyone on the streets as at now in terms of groupings to demonstrate. But of course we'll be keeping an eye to get to see what is happening and if at all demonstration will take place here in Kakamega County. But I'm here with locals just to get to hear from them what is their take with the demonstrations that have been called by Azimio leader Raila Odinga Mondays and Thursdays. Kakangu, karibu, naomba usonge kidogo, tueleze majina yako, hisia zako ni zipi kwa maandamano ambayo yameitwa na Raila Odinga?
Asante sana, naitwa Maxwell, mimi ni mkazi wa Kakamega County. Haya mambo ya maandamano yamedhuru sana sisi kama watu wa jua kali, ambapo saizi hata tumenunua vitu za kazi, tuende kazi, maandamano hatuwezi fanya kazi. Tunaomba serikali waongee na mzee wa vitandawili, at least waelewane, inji rudi kwa amani, tuendelee kufanya kazi kwa amani. Hii mambo ya vita hatutaki. Ndio kweli upande wa unga, ndio mimi hata kama nilipigia Kenya Kwanza kura, pia kweli tuangalie upande wa unga, pia tunaumia wote. Asante sana.
Lakini kwa sasa hakuna maandamano, mbona hujaenda kazini?
Si tumeangalia, kulikuwa na rafsha kidogo, naona ni kama kulikuwa na watu walikuwa wamekusanyika mahali, lakini naona sasa kama kumetulia. Sasa naenda kazi.
Sawa. Wengine labda pengine hisia zako kaka, wewe hisia zako ni zipi kwa maandamano yanayoendelea kwa sasa?
Asante. Kwa majina naitwa Joseph Ateko, nikiwa mkaaji wa Kakamega, eneo bunge la Lurambi. Mimi hisia zangu kuhusu maandamano ambayo imeandaliwa na Mheshimiwa former Prime Minister Raila Odinga ni kwamba ninasema kwamba maandamano iko kwa katiba na ni vizuri kwa sababu yeye anatekeleza vile katiba inasema. Ila tu kulingana vile tumeona maandamano yake vile ameandaa, kuna baadhi ya vijana ambao wanatumika vibaya kwa maandamano. Mimi ningeomba haswa sana vijana wenzangu wasitumike vibaya kwa maandamano, kwa sababu wanapoharibu vitu ambavyo zitasaidia kesho yake inatumiza sisi vijana wengine. Alafu pia ningependa kusema kwamba kwa serikali yetu kuu ambayo inaongozwa na Mheshimiwa Ruto, ningependa kumuomba kwa unyenyekevu, mimi mkaji wa Lurambi, ya kwamba aweze kukaa chini na Raila Odinga, waweze kuongea. Sisi wananchi wa chini tunaumia kwa sababu tunapoangalia unga iko juu, mafuta ndio iko juu, hata saa hizi ushuru wa kampuni yetu ya Kenya Power iko juu. Ningeomba ya kwamba aswa sana waongee tuweze kuwa na uchumi mzuri. So ningependa kusema pia kwa vijana wetu wa Kakamega County, kwa sababu ninawashukuru kwa maana vijana wetu wamekuwa watulivu, hawajakuwa watu wa kusumbua, hawajakuwa watu wa kuandamana. Sisi tumekaa tukitulia, tusikize viongozi wetu watasema nini, wataamua namna gani, so that at least tuone uchumi wetu kisonga mbele.
Sasa kaka, kwako hisia, naomba kama unaweza toa kofia tafadhali.
Hii inatoka tu. Yes. Kwa majina kwanza ni Augustine Sore, mkaji wa hapa Kakamega, na kwanza kabisa nashukuru Kenya yetu iko na amani na iko na utulivu. Yale mambo ambayo yanaendelea kwa hii Kenya, kwanza kabisa ni ya ubinafsi. Na ubinafsi unaweza punguzwa ama unaweza simamishwa iwapo sisi viongozi ambao wamechaguliwa na wasiochaguliwa wakae chini wenyewe. Kwanza before waitane, wenyewe wakae chini wajadili kiakili yao. Je, ni nini ambacho wanafanya? Sababu unapokuwa kiongozi na unasawazisha watu wengine wakufe wadogo wenye hawana hatia, hilo ni jambo ni mbaya. Kulingana na mambo ambayo baba ama Raila anaomba, kitu cha kwanza mimi nilikuwa naomba iwapo anaweza nisikia saizi, alegeze ile msimamo ya saba. Sababu saba hakuna siku hiyo saba itafunguliwa. Hiyo ni jambo la kwanza. La pili, Mheshimiwa Ruto venye alituahidi atekeleze yale mambo ambayo alituahidi, kwamba chakula ishuke, bei ya vyakula zishuke chini, na zikishuka chini hata ona mwananchi hata mmoja akiungana na baba kwenda kwa maandamano. Nimemaliza yangu.
Sawa. Mwisho kabisa kaka, labda pengine hisia zako, naomba usonge kidogo.
Kwa majina naitwa Kisaka Wamalwa, mwanafunzi katika chuo cha upasuaji na udaktari Masinde Muliro. Mimi ningependa kusema kiongozi wetu kinara Raila Amolo Odinga, tunakuaminia, endelea kututetea. School fees ya chuo imeweza kupanda, endelea kututetea, inafaa irudi chini. Sasa hii mimi nimelipiwa school fees, inafaa nifanye mtihani, lakini landlord ananidai hata sijakunywa chai. Raila, shikilia hapo, nchi yetu irudi mali inastahili. Asante sana.
Sawa. Kaka, nao kuna hisia zako?
Kwa majina naitwa Hesbon Mande. Mimi ni mkazi hapa Kakamega. Mimi kwa maandamano ndio ni mzuri, lakini ile vikwazo ambao Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga ameweka vingine apunguze. Gharama ya maisha yenyewe iko juu. Vitu rais anafaa shughulike, ajue vile vitu zitashuka. Kitu ya kwanza, mafuta. Akishukisha hii mafuta, uchumi itarudi chini. Watu watakuwa na, kama mfanya biashara akienda na akitumia transport yake, hata leta vitu zake auze kwa bei ya juu. Atauza kwa bei mzuri yenye mwananchi wa kawaida atafanya nini? Atafurahia naye. So rais ashughulike vitu kama hizo. Lakini vitu kama mahindi nini, wakulima tulime. Na wale ambao hawana shamba la kulima watanunua.
Sasa kwa wewe unaunga mkono maandamano yaendelee ili vitu vishuke chini, ama wakae chini wafanye majadiliano?
Wakae chini wafanye majadiliano ndio suluhu ipatikane.
Okay.
Maandamano haileti suluhu.
Okay.
Mungu
Sasa kaka.
Yes. Kwa majina naitwa Simon Lijodi, mkaaji wa Kakamega. Nilisema kwamba gharama ya maisha imekuwa magumu sana kwa wananchi wa kawaida. Hata pesa wakipata kidogo ya wasaidi. Tungelipenda kwamba president mwenyewe asikae mbali, waelewane na kiongozi wa upinzani. At least maisha ya mwananchi kwa at least, kwa sababu mwananchi wa kawaida anang'ang'ana na kupata chakula imekuwa shida kwao kabisa. So ni vizuri wakae chini. Kama sio hivyo, ujue maandamano itaendelea tu. Na mimi namsupport Raila Odinga kwa sababu anatetea ule mwananchi wa chini. Sisi wenyewe hatuwezi, lakini yeye akienda, sisi serikali itamsikiza kwa haraka. Lakini sisi hatuwezi sikizwa sisi. Nataka kuambia Ruto mwenyewe akae chini na huyu kiongozi. Waelewane na nchi isonge mbele. Lakini kama sio hivyo, ako kwa shida kwa sababu Raila wananchi wanamsikiza zaidi kuliko Ruto mwenyewe. Na ni vizuri asikilia Raila ndiye ameshika hii nchi ya Kenya. Na bila yeye ako kwa shida kwa sababu wananchi wanamsikiza. Wakati anasema maandamano, unaona watu wanajitokeza. Kwa sababu hii inaashiria nini? Kwa sababu wananchi hawana kazi, vijana hawana kazi. Na maandamano ndio kazi sasa. Wanaona hiyo ndio option. Sababu akienda maandamano itawasaidia. Sasa
maandamano itawasaidia vipi?
Itawasaidia kwa sababu wamekuwa idle, hawana kazi ya kufanya. Lakini wanapojangamka pamoja wakisukuma agenda ya serikali upinzani, serikali itasikiza kwa sababu sisi vijana tunahitaji. Ruto mwenyewe alisema vijana atawaandika kazi baada akiingia uongozini. Mpaka saa hii hakuna chochote amefanya.
Maandamano mazuri, lakini kaka naomba usonge kidogo. Kwenu nyinyi vijana wengi kumeshuhudiwa uharibifu wa mali na mambo kama hayo. Wakati tunazungumzia maandamano ya amani, wenu kama vijana mnachukulia vipi haya maandamano wakati mnasema maandamano ya amani ilhali kuna uharibifu wa mali unashuhudiwa?
Hii maandamano kweli ni amani. Raila alipoanza Jumatatu ilikuwa maandamano ya amani. Lakini polisi wenyewe ndio wanataka siku ya amani. Kwa sababu wakati wanakuja wanapata watu wanaandamana wanarusha tear gas. Wanamaanisha nini? Si wendekani wenyewe una take action because already nyinyi mnaandamana peacefully. But somebody anakuja na wainterfere, anarusha hiyo tear gas. Anamaanisha kwamba inakuwa ya fujo.
Sawa. Mwingine naomba tafadhali usonge kidogo na wewe tupate hisia zako.
Okay, kwa majina mimi naitwa King Elvis Muhanji. Kitu ya kwanza ningependa kuambia Mheshimiwa Rais William Ruto, naomba na nakuomba kwa uwezo wa Mwenyezi Mungu, wanakupiga vita, ndio najua wanakupiga vita. Umeingia kwa ofisi, wakati umeingia kwa hiyo ofisi najua walikuwa wamepora, wamewacha account imekuwa 96 million. So Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga na kuheshimu kama kiongozi wa upinzani, kuandamana haitawahi kuleta solution. The best way ni kukaa chini muelewane. Na wakati wewe Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga unapoenda handshake, unatuacha sisi, unasema umeenda kutupigania. Wakati umeenda huko, unaenda peke yako, unatusahau sisi. Tulikupatia Musalia Mudavadi muende naye. Ukaenda ukamwacha huko Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga. Mheshimiwa Amolo Odinga, tunakuomba. Ndio si mbaya wewe kuandamana, ni haki yako, iko kwa katiba. Lakini si kufanya maandamano, mnaenda mnapasua vitu, watoto wanakufa kwa sababu yako. Kwa sababu hata ukiangalia juzi Kakamega County tuliandamana vizuri kwa amani. Lakini wakati unapoenda Kisumu unapata waliua mtu. Hawakuua mtu Kakamega County. Hiyo inamaanisha nini? Inamaanisha Kakamega County tulikuwa na amani. Lakini Kisumu huko kidogo vita. Mheshimiwa Raila, tunakuomba na tunakuheshimu na tunakutambua kama kiongozi wa upinzani.
Sawa.
Leta amani, leta upendo.
Okay. So thank you so much, Linda. As you've had diverse opinion there from locals in Kakamega County, most of them saying that there is need of dialogue because the two leaders, Raila Odinga and Ruto, really need to sit down and discuss, or rather have an amicable solution on what is actually happening right now in the country. Because most of them, as you've heard, they are for demonstrations and some are not for demonstrations, saying that we have a lot of issues that are happening in the country. Of course, high cost of living and basic commodities and as well. And they are calling on to the government to ensure that this is, the cost of living is lowered. But again, there is need of the two principles, that is Raila Odinga and President Ruto, to sit down and have a dialogue to have an amicable solution on basically what is happening in the country as at now. I take it back to you, Linda Alela.
Linda, tutawakomboa hawa wazee.
Mtawakomboa?
Tuwasaidie kazi hiyo. Basi.
Yeah, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics.
Sabak.
It is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, like this is alive. Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us every morning.
Kwa muonekano wao hauwezi ukajua waliopitia. Kwa sura zao zinapong'aa hauwezi ukafahamu changamoto zao. Nyuma yao ipo stori na historia. Katika kipindi Ufahamu Kiongozi tunakupa nafasi kuweza kuwafahamu kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mutu.
Your health matters and Body Garage is here to guide you on it.
Someone's after using the medication, the virus number of the HIV in someone's body will start to go.
My medication, wherever I go, I must make sure I'm committed to my medication. Yes. And I should watch what I'm eating. I should not just eat from everywhere or not just eat anything.
We talk mental, physical, and spiritual health. Join us every Thursday at 8 p.m. Lover of farming? Well, Kilimo Diaries is your home for different farming ventures, crops, animals, and so much more. Every Sunday, with a new year comes endless possibilities, and as we continue to tell the stories of those abled differently, do make sure to join us on Beyond the Limit every Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
It's a new year,
And with the new year, it means new business ideas, new trends in the market, and new tips to make your current business even better.
Giving an option for a customer to have unsecured financing enables them to get the product today without putting any collateral down.
And we here on The Grind, we will be at the forefront to keep you in the loop every Monday at 8:30 p.m.
Here, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics.
Sabak.
This is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, you know, like this is alive. Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us every morning.
Kwa muonekano wao hauwezi ukajua waliopitia, kwa sura zao zinapong'aa hauwezi ukafahamu changamoto zao. Nyuma yao ipo stori la historia. Katika kipindi Ufahamu Kiongozi tunakupa nafasi kuweza kuwafahamu.
Today, we take it up until 10 a.m. and with me in studio, Honorable Member of Parliament, Embakasi North, Jimmy Gakuya, the party leader, Justice and Freedom Party, Justus Juma, with us in studio. We are from Kakamega County and back to studio just to unpack the activities of today, what to expect. And we acknowledge that in as much as maybe there might not be so much of activity, you know, seeing people going to the streets, reality is that it is not business as usual in the country, and therefore there is need for these leaders to speak and tell us the way forward. Right, Mheshimiwa, there are about 5 things involved in this kind of stalemate that we are witnessing today. First, and God forbid, is that then the country plunges into proper anarchy. And why I am saying this is because we are not immune, and we have seen other nations going to such levels where then you ask yourself, couldn't we have done something to at least stop this? We also risk a scenario, and this politically we have seen, you have listened to the likes of Jeremiah Kioni, and one would want to label him as a political loser because then he lost. But reality is that some of these utterances that they make, you know, are those ones that you need to worry about. And he says, you know what, the kind of petition that we are putting up, don't be surprised to see the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, you know, occupying Statehouse. Perhaps that's the reason why it has hugely been protected. That also is a possible scenario.
He's a Secretary General of Jubilee Party, so it's not just a loser. He has representation.
Yes, that's the thing.
You have to take him seriously.
I said so because then the Kenya Kwanza team will always say, you know, tell him that he's a wounded lion, all these sorts of manner of things. There's also a possibility that then we have witnessed a coalition, we have witnessed a handshake in the country, agreements being reached, where then these two leaders are going to be put on the table, and then we find a mechanism to just quell the current situation. And so that's speaking of a coalition. There equally a possibility that, you know what, we get to see the government itself not being able to function because of this constant, you know, heating of the streets and all that. Or a possibility that, like the Deputy President would say, or like your side would say, you know, enough with negotiating with Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Can Mzee just retire in peace? And we will respect that. There's also that possibility. But in all this, it lies in the hands of the government.
One thing you didn't directly say, the organizers of these demonstrations, from the onset I told you, they are not in good heart. The demonstrations are meant to do very negative things, and this is to force the downfall of this government. It's only that Kenyans are more wise, and they are not going to participate in those numbers that Raila expects. That's why you find him trying to woo even Masai to come to the city.
Mheshimiwa,
with rungus and
Mheshimiwa, I would love to, you know, agree to that. I'd love to close my eyes and say that there's some truth in what you say. But Monday last week surprised very many people. In fact, the fear was that if this were to begin early, maybe they would have marched themselves all the way to Statehouse that is highly protected, because I'm imagining a scenario where police will, focus on stopping about 1 million Kenyans that wish to proceed to Statehouse. It will be terrible. It's just that they started at around 1 p.m. Before you know it, it's time to close the demonstrations at around 6, and therefore they were not lucky enough to walk all the way.
Which will be...
But leader, my biggest question is, the route to mobilize the mass to march to Statehouse, to me, is not to go direction.
Yes. Why not?
That is a revolution way.
Okay.
And the mass resolution has been witnessed. Those are uprisings.
And we have seen those.
Uprising has been there, successful in Egypt,
yes,
Tunisia, and
Velvet's.
But at what? My biggest question: why do we get into this? This is only that we don't respect our constitution that we have drafted ourselves. If we borrowed something foreign and it's in our constitution, then we need to remove it and have a constitution that can envisage our own.
Because one that can stop demonstrations?
No, I am not.
The right to demonstrate?
No, I am not talking about that right to demonstrate. But issues of nusumukates that we always talk about.
They are not incorporated in the constitution, are they?
They are not.
Let's not.
And that is what I'm saying.
Let's not have
the constitution we adopted is a united way where if the current member of the current president takes over, he takes everything.
Yes.
And that is the way it is.
Winner takes it all.
See,
of course.
The constant
and if we want to go other way other than that, that's what I'm saying, that actually whatever we borrowed, if it's not working here, so that at least we can have either a rotational president or either we can adopt a system where after Arusa, it's not Arusa. Arusa has his package in the constitution.
Okay.
But we cannot be always working out of the constitution. And we are trying to treat ourselves that we are within the law. We are not within the law if we have not followed the right channels of redressing.
Yeah.
We have a pronunciation of Supreme Court where we are not respecting, and we are totally ignoring that. Then we are pushing things to go because we want to take somebody to Statehouse on an illegal way.
Okay.
He failed to win, get the public win through the ballot, and then he won't find himself on a widow direction.
Yeah.
This is a route where I personally cannot support and I can't stand for. Okay. Even in a manner where there will be a talk for what we call sharing of power, I cannot be part of it.
Okay.
One thing during the handshake, that's handshake, when Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta handshake with Raila, me, I moved out of the Jubilee.
Yes.
From my heart, and I was totally out of it. Even today, if Ruto decides that the route to go is to welcome Raila in the government, Raila is known as a destroyer, and he's a political party. He has made Jubilee today it's a shell.
Okay.
His party is still strong. But the Jubilee was the government. Today is a total share with less than that member of parliament. This is Raila is known. He left Jogo when Jogo was so popular and strong. When he moved out of it, he left it as a shell. So this is a kind of man that we know.
I fear for you in that case, because you should get ready for UDA to be a shell.
Is it?
Well, today, you invite Raila here in this wedding. I am telling you, UDA will be a shell. I can tell you.
Well,
and I cannot be part of
I
this.
would agree with him
Yes.
if we had a fair electoral process. Yeah. An electoral process that is acceptable by all standards. Electoral process that will leave losers comfortable, actually, to concede. People never concede happily, but concede knowing that indeed I engaged in a process which I know I will live to fight another day.
Yeah.
My opponent was best prepared than me. But if our electoral process had gerrymandering and we were watching, my brother, there we were not, we did not object. But right now...
But was Ruto the referee?
No, I'm just saying, my point is, the process of electoral process that is delivering the child that we are talking about is what needs to be considered. If you are in a flawed process, which actually you know yourself is skewed, and you benefit out of it. And when it comes to the consequences of what you're beneficiary of, you don't want to bear consequences. You want the consequences. Now everybody runs back to the constitution, which I love. I love the fact that we have a constitution. Everybody is falling back to the constitution. But if we are to talk about the constitution, then we need to allow the constitution and the institutions established by the constitutions to work. And they work according to constitutional expectation. But the moment we violate these institutions, we wreck them, we make them not work, and then we want to cherish the result of skewed process, and now we use the constitution to protect it, then we become liars and people of double standards. And this is what now...
Who was in control?
This is now what the Waheshimiwa
control of the last election?
And as a result, do you know what is going to happen?
Was not the master the Muigai Kenyatta? Who was the chairman of the Azimio?
Your party leader?
No, leave alone name calling. I'm looking at the institutions and the processes. As it stands right now, you dear guys, you are at a catch-22 place. And if you guys were well advised, and this is where now good advisors for power management needed to have come to play. Because where they're in, already they've been boxed somewhere, and what they're fearing is going to befall them, which is the wrecking of your house, because I see scenarios of your government going home. That is the worst case scenario. I see a scenario of you guys compromising and working with the same guy, and of course, us as political parties will not just be watching you. If you're going to go talk about national government, then include all the political parties. And I see a case where we all must agree, and that to me will be a win-win. We all must agree.
First and foremost, leader, we must conclude that we have no constitution.
We have no
then we go Somali way.
But you see, that conclusion is a double mind. I mean, that is a double standard, because people only call on constitutions when it's at their convenience. But when they're beneficiaries, they would rather violate with impunity, triumph over everything.
And going the Somali way, my understanding is that he means, then we might as well say, what was the point of going for an election? Why don't we have few individuals who are going to pick the president? Why don't we have, one person saying, now this is the person?
And the leader, my strongest point is, for the first time, a leader was in the power. He was in bed with the government. And let me tell you, he was enjoying state machinery, he was enjoying deep state, and what we call system. The system was the one running the election. How can you tell us the one who was outside was the one running shots? That today we can be in clamor that election were fraud.
These are the challenges we've been facing. I know it's only a fool who does the same thing expecting different results. By now we should have grown up, and we should be able to establish whether this system is working for us or working against us. You've just mentioned Somali. I was having coffee with a friend of mine, Paddy Aenda, who apparently was appointed to be the chair of chairs in Somali. And I was so surprised that the structure of government these guys have adopted, though we look down upon them, call them Somalis. You realize to date that place is still holding. They've set up a council of leadership, where leadership structure is. Remember that model in the Bible where you had leaders of 10, leaders of 50, leaders of 1,000, and representation that address the interests of the people, which by now has actually worked very well for them.
And maybe one of the reasons why we've been asking.
Has worked well for them, except for the Western or external countries who might have had interest to exploit the local economy. Because to them, what does not work for them, they call it primitive, they call it backward, they don't accept it. And that's when I get worried, when we are always embedded with these individuals.
But you could say it has worked well, and I think that's the reason why most of the people will argue, well, fine, this is not a progressive aspect of democracy. But then again, we ask ourselves, don't we go back to our African ways, which seemed to work back then? But look at most of the Somali people who are not in the country today. They have gone to different parts of the world because they feel like that home is not safe.
You see, when Gaddafi had as a concept which was able to address social needs to a point that there was provision for housing. Here, I'm sure rent and all these other things is all capitalist. There was a provision for, I know when I'm talking about housing, we're talking about standard housing. and the healthcare, it was not it was provided by the state. Education was free until university, not just to a point that they were even sponsoring free education for their people who wanted to study elsewhere. I mean, internationally, they were even sharing directly with the citizen the dividends or the profits on oil proceeds. It was going directly to people's pocket. And what did the West call them? During in Spain, Aldo Moro. What did they do to Aldo Moro? You see, the world outside there have also had their own interest, and some people may call them New World Order. Some people may call them the specific names or protocols with an order of managing and controlling the supremacy in the world by controlling our economy and manipulating various vices for their own interest. And we've seen that, whether it was the other day in Tanzania, I know Magufuli had his own stand regarding the New World influence, regarding, whether it was just around Corona, but he was speaking something deeper. And even his policy on foreign trade and all that, yes. And we're still having an issue with Putin up there, and China also has its own issues, and how China has come back, because China, if you read the history of China, the West had turned China into actually a narcotic center. And the first war that China had with the West was narcotic war. It's a drug war where they wanted just to turn people zombie and exploit that economic market. So when you're talking about the best practices or standards that are acceptable, sometimes we even pity ourselves when we have friends of the West. Our problem ought to have been sorted internally. Or next neighbor would have been IALA. They're all mum. Or AU, they're all mum. Why would you wait for a senator from
Well, at least
from
the
US?
AU has spoken. Has spoken.
Well, where they're speaking, speak with authority and take charge. This is why we don't just speak with inactively and allow external community to come and this is how they're playing.
And the hypocritical
African
aspect of this, or nature of this, is that we have even witnessed the Azimio team saying that, now we have done this. Why is it that the international community is not intervening, is not speaking, and all that? So it looks like
people are agents of these individuals. No wonder earlier I said Kenyans. When I was buying and launching, I said Kenyans, we are forced with two scenarios where you have to choose between a fox and a wolf, who must eat you, because these are agents of both players. And no wonder even in this Kenya Kwanza government, the trade policies that they've engaged on, if you look at them, they are benefiting specific international communities and making this community very vulnerable. If you adoption of GMO, did we really need that? Well, you'll ask, because this geographic location is very fertile, where I come from. You didn't even need to pray for water. There's a lot of water that is running, going to waste. All we needed is to invest in modern technology and irrigate. We have states like Israel who are farming in the desert. Here we are, even in Nairobi alone, Mheshimiwa, you must be having balls in your constituency. It doesn't take you too long to drill one. We've not even adopted urban farming. We are not producing food. Yet we are busy crying for that we are going to beg for food outside. What is wrong?
Hence my question.
It's back to leadership. Back to leadership. If the leadership can start addressing the basic needs and not just jump at the whims of the external powers whose interest is actually to give them tokens for their belly, to make them think for next election, not next generation. These have been the vicious circles that keep on taking us round and round, and with a little token they have, they will buy their way. It doesn't matter whoever they are buying, or if you are not buyable, they kill you. You've seen such cases. And these are the things that are making our institutions not work. And when they get to power, and while in power, they actually, all of them would love to see systems or institutions work, only to realize that they're the very same persons who destroyed these systems. So I think it's high time we made difficult choices and start readdressing where the rain started beating us. Readdress these foundations and the systems we are talking about. Linda, to date, the West still sponsors our education curriculum.
Unfortunately.
Do you think they will sponsor it if they will fund it if it's not benefiting them?
No.
Why would they fund our election? They will fund it if it's benefiting them.
Mheshimiwa, good questions right there. And I'm looking at the cartoon editions. Sometimes even in the moments of adversity, you find reason to, bring some aspects of satire and all that. This is the Daily Nation, and you can clearly see what Kenyans are being treated to, and sort of like suppression to the troubles that we have, but as though incorporating more and more of troubles. This is just the Daily Nation. I am looking at the Standard newspaper, which perhaps speaks more to the situation that we are in this morning. And it breaks my heart to look at it, that, it speaks of the fact that the president is out there, in diaspora, and reminding the people that we are focused on making sure that we can have investors come on board, and it is all well to come back and invest at home. But really, what is on ground is basically not what we see. So they say we are peaceful, we are a peaceful country, and are inviting you to invest in our country. Well, but look at the picture on the other side, but qua ground, it is totally a different affair. And we all know that this is the truth of the matter. And then the Daily Nation speaks of ending rising violence and restore law and order. Let's face it, something is amiss.
You're not making it easy for Mheshimiwa.
But one thing, Leader, do you want us that actually we will stop asking investors to invest because we have...
We cannot stop.
Because we have demonstrations?
We cannot stop.
Action speaks louder than words. You don't need to ask.
The demonstrators will
need to put
to make sure that it's a peaceful environment.
An environment that is enabling
friendly
investment, not attract investment. When you can't attract investment, then you'll be forced to go spreading words.
Number two,
what is on
I want also to answer the concern of my panelists that this government is not in captive of West.
Sure?
And this one, I just want to be straight that. One,
who's funding
the things that you are addressing here.
Determining your curriculum.
But you've said that there's some element.
No, allow me a minute.
Yes.
We are talking on the area of food security.
Yeah.
Food security is an area where we require budgets because you require to tap this water using funds. You require to do irrigation having dams. This is a matter that the government can do within 2 days. You require to have what we call a budgetary process. At least you budget for that, and then you implement, which within 6 months, this cannot be realizable, whether we like it or not. If there's an issue to do with our season lanes, they are more largely affected by our what I can call the forest cover. We destroy our forest. We need to reforest. How do you go about it? You plant trees. There's no way that you can secure.
You're the ones who
let me finish.
The policy of farming in the forest, cutting it down.
Allow me to finish. Yes, we have been a dependent of seasonal lanes, and we have been planting our
trees,
grains by those seasonal lanes. Today, we are out of our seasons. You realize that, in fact, our major lanes are in this particular month, and April, and it's like, yes, we have, but not very much assuring. Where are we going on? We are going on because those mechanisms to attract rains are not there. The forests were...
with the advance of technology.
No.
Just here in Dubai, they have sea water, and they've abandoned it. They're even harvesting water from the atmosphere. With the advent of technology, we still sit here in this day and age, and we want to say we are competing globally. And yet we're still depending on rain, which you can't even control. People even make their own rain. There's a chemical rain that people make if you wanted rain. Yet we have plenty of water in our aquifer. Leave alone even here where we're talking, even in Turkana where people are dying of drought.
Just the other day, World Water Day, we traveled to Samburu County to witness a model farm set up by...
And Linda, you have
a government that is still waiting for rain that they don't even
all this water
they've cut the
will require funding.
Yes.
What funding?
It has to be budgeted for
political goodwill. Let me show him.
And funding we do not have?
Let me demonstrate to him how. And you see, this way...
Anybody will come to do for free?
Let me help you.
Certainly no.
It's not. Yes. Let me show you how to do. And that's why my government would have been very different. Now you see why I wanted to be a president. We have an education system which actually make learners very passive, not engaged at the workplace. Yet they are very energetic. Look at that age gap from primary, secondary to university level. Those are very energetic individuals. If these sectors they are now privatizing were made to use and be linked up with the education system such that learners learn as they work, isn't it? And the actually there are governments who have gotten it right, such that you don't even need to pay for school fees. School fees is free, but your experiments and your apprenticeship, you engage and work. And where are you working? Ministry of Roads. So we have engineers here in various schools. All we need to do is invest on instruments and set up infrastructure for them to actually gain skills, such that when they are leaving the school, they'll be leaving schools rich, living with a CV which is rich in skills, having worked and knows how to work. And actually, when you work as a learner, you get more inspired, you get more motivated. You'll not just end up with learners who they are waiting for certificate. After how many years they come out and begin to tarmac. There are a lot of areas that we can use to engage and tap into our local resources without even.
Which you think we've deliberately failed to?
No, this because the type of education system they are tied to is a type of education system which somebody else wants, and individuals who are just looking for servants to work for their, remember the slave servants and the slave master and the slave servant, where all he needed was individuals to serve him as accountants, serve him as engineers, treat him as a nurse. Right now we are producing so many nurses to go and take care of the older people on the other side. Whereas here,
you want to tell us that
we can have an education curriculum devoid of just serving where you work to go and being employed, but create employers.
And you think the competency-based curriculum wasn't about that, or isn't about that?
The competency-based curriculum.
Make it brief so I can say something before we close.
Yes, the competency-based curriculum actually got mutilated, and this is why it's very dangerous to pick good ideas and whose foundation you don't want to rush with to go and implement, because they took good ideas and landed it back into 844, where exam and exam grilling is just gearing you back towards what? Certificate, instead of learners being able to apply that knowledge with or without the certificate. The end product of this learning should be, are you able to demonstrate? Are you able to survive? Can you live without depending on anybody? Because we need to raise independent citizens. These are the things that these governments have refused to adopt. And as a result, where is our country?
In defense,
waiting for miracles and praying, looking
defense, it will tell you we're only six months and they do not want us to implement
6 months is a lot of time.
Close it for us.
One thing, let me also state very clear that my panelist is not coming from universe. He has been here. And you know, the program you have today is a program that was taken to Kenyans for public participation. They did air their views. And it's only that the implementation is done. This is even not the concept of government. We have just adopted what was there in the last government, where yourself
you were a witness.
Were part of it. So today you cannot deny what already you has been into. And if there is an issue where that you could believe that actually is not the right direction, there was a room for that. You could have got to those public presentations. You could have made your memorandum to at least to enlighten Kenyans on a direction where they are missing linkage. And I'm saying your views are very important.
As a citizen,
during that time.
As a citizen, I've actively participated. I'm still actively participating to a point that in this election, I came out publicly to share with the citizen our manifesto regarding our desired future. And how we can get to that desired future. But the challenges we've experienced in this process, Linda, we've met a lot. I, as an individual, was baptized with an ID, EACC. Just decided and pick another woman's ID and say, that is my ID. Ignoring my ID there, and the intention was just malice to knock me out, so that these ideas are not done to.
Did you replace that?
Yes, I have. And right now is going to cost. What
was the verdict?
Right now is going to cost the citizen, taxpayers, money, because somebody has to pay for defamation. So when we are talking about these things,
we have to close.
We are not talking about things that we are not addressing actively. We are here, but people have refused to listen. Mostly are thinking with their stomach instead of opening their brain and ears to see.
I am worried.
We are having with this type of leaders.
We remain positive. Remain positive. Mheshimiwa, I have to say asante sana for speaking to us.
Thank you, Rida. But I would still be very categorical that actually this government is not government of its own stomach. It is a government of people and represent the people. And just anything.
It's a matter of time.
Yes,
Tumbocrats.
I'm telling you.
It's a matter of time before we see the.
Yes, and there's no compromise that we have with the West.
Okay.
Nothing.
Okay, sawa.
And we are treating West as any other partner.
Then start funding your education curriculum, decide your education curriculum, have independent electoral process, fund it yourself. Then you'll say that there's no intrusion from outside.
Last speaker, Dr. Justice Juma, the Justice and Freedom Party leader, as well as the Member of Parliament, Embakasi North. That is Honorable Jimmy Gakuya. It's been a cool around 3-4 hours that have been quite good, and lots of feedback from you, and we want to say thank you so much. We continue with this form of broadcast as we witness the activities in the country. Matikio coming up next to give you more updates on the same. I'd have loved for us to speak to some of the policies that have been presented by CSK Diki Kithure as pertaining to how they intend as police to address the questions of demonstrations in the country, but because time will not allow us, I'm sure the same, I can ably delegate to the next thing that comes aboard, and they will also have fun.